Chapter 1764. Since the soul is with Genshin, we can't let Genshin go. A late over-god growled as killing intent surged in his eyes. It was chilling. That's right. We can't let Genshin go. Genshin actually stole Duanmu Divine King's belongings with his companions when we were away. We can't let him go so easily. The overgods in the surroundings all spoke with righteous indignation. Every single one of them felt very resentful. Not only did they fail to obtain Duanmu Divine King's flying sword, but even the other belongings of Duanmu Divine King had been taken away as well. How could they accept this? The late overgod of the divine kingdom of Pingtian, Yonkai, and a few other overgods from the royal capital stood in the crowd as well. However, they said nothing about what had happened to Genshin. They remained silent. At this moment, a black-robed old man walked out. He stared at Genshin coldly and said, "Old man possesses a secret, soul-stealing technique. Once the old man extracts Genshin's soul, everyone can deal with it." With that, he directly made his way towards Genshin. The black-robed old man was the ancestor of the Mo family from the divine kingdom of Qingyang. He was a mid-overgod. No one stopped the ancestor of the Mo family. Instead, they just watched. Genshin had taken away their fortune, so they naturally resented him. They were tempted to kill Genshin as soon as possible. The ancestor of the Mo family arrived before Genshin and directly extended his hand towards Genshin. However, when he came in contact with the damaged armor on Genshin, his eyes narrowed by an undetectable amount. God artifact. This armor is actually a god artifact. The ancestor of the Mo family was greatly shocked as his heart churned. God artifacts were powerful treasures that had surpassed the truth tier. They were extremely precious and rare. Even a supreme divine king, like Duanmu, did not have the right to possess one. This was because, under normal circumstances, only chaotic primes had the right to possess god artifacts. There were extremely few infinite primes who possessed god artifacts. In the Saints' world, even many peak infinite primes used half-god artifacts or supreme quality truth tier treasures. Every single god artifact was something that infinite primes could only dream of. There were far too many records of god artifacts in the Saints' world. Although the ancestor of the Mo family had never seen a god artifact before, he possessed a lot of information regarding god artifacts with his strength as a mid-overgod. As a result, he immediately recognized it when he came in contact with it. However, the ancestor of the Mo family did not show anything on his face. He studied the damaged armor like normal and said indifferently, "I never thought that Genshin would actually be wearing an 8th grade truth tier armor. It's just a pity that it's too damaged. However, the materials used to make it are quite valuable." As he said that, the ancestor of the Mo family took off the damaged armor from Genshin steadily and stowed it away in his space ring with great composure. However, he was nowhere near as calm as he seemed on the surface. Instead, he became extremely excited. However, he hid it well. Although the god artifact was damaged, it was still a god artifact after all. Its remaining value was nothing to primordial realm experts, but it was a supreme treasure to any overgod. I'm rich. I never thought I'd actually find a god artifact. It's a god artifact, a god artifact. The ancestor of the Mo family was overjoyed, but he did not dare to show it at all. He extended his hand like nothing had happened, and as his hand formed seals, he began to use a secret technique to extract Genshin's soul. Ha 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 ha, I've already set my sights on Genshin. None of you are allowed to harm him, or I won't go easy on you. At this moment, a voice rang out from behind everyone. A handsome young man in white robes, who seemed to be in his 20s, entered as well. The young man smiled frivolously as he held a fan. He walked past all the overgods leisurely, directly making his way towards Genshin. Behind this young man with a folding fan, there was a tall and sturdy man following closely behind him like a loyal guard. The appearance of the young man caused the expressions of all the overgods present to change slightly. They had seen the young man and the burly man from afar when they were trying to break through the entrance to the divine King Duanmu's dwelling. They knew that the young man possessed quite the background, and he probably came from a powerful clan or organization. As a result, they ignored the young man's rude actions outside. The ancestor of the Mo family paused as well. He turned his head and looked at the young man. His face sank slightly as well. No, Jianqin has taken away what originally belonged to us. You're dreaming if you want us to hand him over. It's impossible unless Jianqin makes the companion of the soul hand over everything. A late overgod stood forward and said firmly, even though the young man possessed some background, this matter was related to their interests. It was even related to their breakthrough to the Divine King. As a result, even though they feared the young man's background slightly, they still objected. Moreover, there were several dozen overgods gathered here right now. They represented several divine kingdoms in the surroundings. All of them wanted the fortune left behind by the divine King Duanmu, so they naturally stood on the same side as the young man. Haha, that's not up to you to decide. I'm going to take away Jianqin right now. If there are any seniors who are unconvinced, you definitely have to stand out and stop me. The young man chuckled as he fanned his fan. The young man waved his fan and chuckled. He was insufferably arrogant, not taking these master gods seriously at all. He directly arrived before Jianqin and glanced at the unconscious Xinjian. Afterwards, he took out a spatial treasure in the shape of a divine hall and stowed Jian away. Afterwards, he picked up Jianqin with his arms and swaggered towards the exit. He completely ignored the murderous gazes of the surrounding overgods. Stop. If you don't let go of Jianqin, don't even think about leaving today. The late overgod blocked the young man and said with a sunken face, That's right. If you don't hand over Jianqin, don't even think about leaving today. Hand over Jianqin, several other overgods stood forward after the late overgod. They blocked the young man's path as well. Their gazes were cold as cold light flickered in their eyes. How dare you? At this moment, the burly man behind the young man bellowed out. He directly waved his hand at the overgods in front of him. Immediately, a terrifying gust of wind whistled out, directly sweeping towards the overgods. Although the gust of wind did not give off any pressure, the overgods were unable to resist at all when it swept towards them. They were blown far away like leaves. Chapter 1765. The overgods were unable to resist at all before the gust of wind. Even though there were late overgods among them, they were still as insignificant as ants before the gust of wind. No matter how they struggled, no matter how hard they tried to resist, it was all to no avail. In the end, the overgods directly fell out of the space from the gust of wind, vanishing from everyone's sight. Immediately, the surroundings fell silent. The other overgods all widened their eyes as they stared at the burly man behind the young man in shock. Their hearts churned. Even the ancestor of the Mo family who had taken away Jianqin's damaged armor was stunned. His face was filled with shock and fear. He secretly rejoiced that he did not stand up to stop the young man with a folding fan. With just a wave of his hand, several overgods had been sent away without being able to put up any resistance at all. There were even late overgods among them. It was just too terrifying. The Divine King. He's definitely the Divine King. Only before the Divine King will late overgods be so powerless. With just a wave of his hand, he was able to render several Lord gods defenseless. I'm afraid that even the person ranked first on the 3,000 Lord gods ladder wouldn't be able to do such a thing. A Divine King. This is definitely a Divine King. Heavens, there's actually a Divine King protecting him all the way. Just how terrifying is the power behind this young man with a fan? Aye. Everyone's gazes towards the young man with a folding fan, and the brawny man had undergone an earth-shattering change. Previously, they were only a little afraid of the young man with a folding fan, but now they were afraid of the young man with a folding fan, an unprecedented fear. The young man did not stop He directly made his way out with the heavily injured Jianchen. He did not show any surprise at how Uncle Qin had rendered several overgods helpless with just a wave of his hand. It was as if this was how it should be. I'm going to be leaving. Seniors, if you still want Jianchen, you have to hurry up, Jianchen said with a smile on his face. The young man had a frivolous smile on his face. His gaze slowly swept across the faces of the crowd as he spoke with a mischievous smile. None of the surrounding overgods dared to make a sound. Instead, as the young man advanced, they quickly made way for him. They did not dare to stop him at all. They didn't even dare to show any dissatisfaction on their faces for fear of offending the young man with the folding fan. The young man easily left with Jianchen. Even though the overgods felt reluctant, there was nothing they could do. The soul still hasn't come out yet. Let's keep watch here. Once the soul comes out, we'll kill her immediately. She won't be able to take anything away, an early overgod suddenly said after the young man left. When they heard that, the eyes of the surrounding overgods lit up. They all stood guard and attacked the power of law at the same time, increasing the depletion of the power of law. However, not everyone stayed behind. A few of the heavily injured overgods knew that they would not be able to obtain anything even if they stayed behind, so they just left. The ancestor of the Mo family did not stay behind either. He left the divine king's dwelling. He had already obtained a damaged god artifact, which was a great harvest, so he was satisfied. He did not want to suffer in the upcoming battle. At this moment, Fairy Haoyue's illusionary soul hovered above the Divine King's remains in the region protected by the power of laws. Slivers of power actually radiated from the incomplete golden core in the Divine King's head, forming streams that constantly flowed towards Fairy Haoyue's soul. As a result, Fairy Haoyue's soul recovered at an extremely terrifying rate. Moreover, some of the Divine King's power from when he was alive was still stored in his remains. It had not dispersed with the passage of time, so Fairy Haoyue absorbed the power madly. A space ring hovered in the air. It was the space ring on the Divine King's finger. At this moment, cube-sized divine crystals hovered out from the space ring. The surging energy within the divine crystals turned into streams that were all absorbed by Fairy Haoyue. The divine crystals were pure, without any impurities. They had all reached the level of supreme grade, even more precious than high-grade divine crystals. Fairy Haoyue was using the items left behind by the Divine King to recover her strength and body. After who knew how long, Jianchen gradually regained consciousness. When he opened his eyes, he saw a deep blue sky and white clouds. You've actually woken up so quickly. I thought you'd be unconscious for a day or two. I never thought you'd wake up in just 6 hours. A surprised voice rang out from beside Jianchen while he was still in a daze. It rang out clearly in Jianchen's ears. Jianchen looked over and discovered a white-robed young man who seemed to be in his 20s, sitting nearby with his legs crossed. He had a frivolous smile on his face as he stared at Jianchen in great interest. A burly man with his back towards Jianchen sat near the young man. He sat on the ground with his legs crossed. Jianchen quickly looked around and discovered that he was in a mountain range. Fierce winds blew around him, causing his hair to dance wildly. "Where is this place? And who are you?" Jianchen asked. At the same time, he moved his body. He wanted to stand up, but he immediately felt intense pain all over his body, causing him to frown. He was very heavily injured, and he had yet to recover from his wounds. Just moving slightly would affect his wounds. The young man pondered. He looked around and said with uncertainty, This seems to be the divine kingdom of 9 stars. I don't remember it very clearly. As for who I am..." With that, the young man suddenly smiled resplendently. He slowly stood up and arrived before Jianchen while waving his fan. He sat down beside Jianchen and smiled. "I'm your savior. If I hadn't saved you, you would have been Sai. I don't even know who that person is." It's just that an overgod from the divine kingdom of Qingyang called the Mo family or something extracted your soul to nourish your body. That would have been a fate worse than death. Thank you for saving me. I, Genshin, will remember your kindness, the young man said to the young man. However, he firmly committed the Mo family of the divine kingdom of Qingyang to memory. They wanted to extract his soul and make him suffer a fate worse than death. If that really happened, how could he just let it go? My name isn't Sir. Genshin, listen up. My name is Tong Tian. Tong as in Tong Tian, Tian as in Tong Tian. What do you think? Isn't my name very domineering? The young man puffed out his chest and said complacently. His voice was filled with pride. It is indeed very domineering. Thank you for your assistance, young Master Tong Tian, said Genshin. From their short conversation, he could already tell that Tong Tian was probably a disciple of a large clan. He possessed a sense of pride and arrogance that originated from his very bones, but he was not a bad person. Tong Tian chuckled aloud. Genshin, your wounds are extremely severe. You probably won't be able to recover in a short amount of time. I feel like I've known you for a long time, so I'll help you out. With that, a black pill silently appeared in Tong Tian's hand. He glanced at Qin Zheng, who sat nearby with his back towards them in a rather guilty manner before feeding the pill to Genshin very quickly. Qin Zheng's face twitched unnaturally as he sat there with his eyes closed. He turned around and stared at Tong Tian. He said with a darkened face, Young master, why did you steal Elder Gu's 9 refined, life-returning pill? Chapter 1766. Although Qin Zheng had his back towards them and was resting with his eyes closed, just what level of cultivation did he possess? Even with his eyes closed, Tong Tian's actions could not be hidden from him. Tong Tian was surprised and became even more guilty. However, he remained composed on the surface. He fanned himself with his fan and said, Uncle Qin, you've misunderstood me. It's not like Elder Gu is the only one who can refine 9 refined life-giving pills. Who knows how many pill masters can refine 9 refined, life-giving pills in the entire Saints world? How can I not obtain a few 9 refined, life-giving pills with my identity? Moreover, it's not like you don't know just how powerful the formations in Elder Gu's pill room are. How am I supposed to get in with my strength? Qin Zheng shook his head helplessly when he heard Tong Tian's serious explanation. Although Tong Tian's words made sense, Qin Zheng knew that the young master before him had probably used some unknown method to sneak into Elder Gu's pill room and steal quite a few pills. Genshin's expression became rather strange when he heard the conversation between Tong Tian and Qin Zheng. He had already realized that Tong Tian had probably stolen the pill from the clan. However, at this moment, Genshin's face changed slightly. In the next moment, a gentle, white light radiated from his body, completely enveloping him in a single instant. He seemed to have become a huge cocoon as a heavy medicinal fragrance wafted out. Just a single kiss was enough to make people feel extremely comfortable. There was an incomparably comfortable feeling. It was as if the remaining impurities in his body had been cleansed by this medicinal fragrance. Genshin's wounds actually healed at an unbelievable rate under the white light. It was so fast that even Genshin's face changed. He was greatly shocked. In just a few seconds, the white light around Genshin receded, revealing Genshin. However, his complexion had already returned to normal, and his wounds had completely healed. What a powerful pill! It's countless times more powerful than any healing pill I've ever seen. Genshin could not help but sigh in amazement. He understood just how severe his wounds were. Even with his radiant saint force and chaotic body, he would need at least a day to recover. This speed was already heaven-defying enough. However, the 9 refined life-giving pill had actually healed Genshin in just a few seconds. In the past, Genshin rarely ingested healing pills when he was injured because the effects of healing pills were basically negligible. They were nowhere near as effective as the chaotic body. But now, The healing power of the 9 refined life revival pill was more than 100 times stronger than his chaotic force. Tong Tian said rather proudly when he heard Jianshan's praise, "Of course. Why don't you take a look at what kind of pill this is? It's a 9 refined, life-giving pill. In order to obtain them, I've spent a tremendous amount of effort. But even with that being the case, I've only managed to obtain 3. If it weren't for the fact that I found you to be an old friend at first sight, I wouldn't have been willing to take them out." Jianshan stood up and thanked Tong Tian again. Then he said, "Young Master Tong Tian, a friend of mine is still in the divine King Duanmu's dwelling. She could be in danger at any time, so I must return immediately. Please forgive me for my lack of manners. Jianshan, there are several dozen over-gods in the dwelling. Are you sure you can save your friend from them?" Tong Tian said steadily. Jianshan became rather stern. He said, "If I have enough time, I do have some confidence." Jianshan thought of the small high-grade, divine, crystal mine in the Dong province. With his current strength, he could fend off all the powerful clans in the Dong province, so it would naturally be extremely easy for him to take over the mine. As long as he could reach the 10th layer of the chaotic body through the mine, his battle prowess would definitely increase drastically. With the strength of the chaotic body, he was confident that he could deal with mid-over-gods. Even if he could not defeat late over-gods, he could still hold them off. Tai Zheng walked over and looked at Jianshan in admiration. He said, "You should be talking about the soul. You don't have to worry about that. Your friend is not simple at all. He should be an infinite prime when he was alive, and he's currently using Duanmu's items to recover his strength. Those over-gods won't be able to threaten him." Jianshan was finally relieved when he heard that. However, he was surprised by Hao Yue's strength as well. It was actually possible for him to be an infinite prime. However, Jianshan seemed to realize something soon afterwards. He stared at Tai Zheng in shock. Tai Zheng could actually tell Fairy Hao Yue's strength when she was alive? Moreover, he knew that Fairy Hao Yue was using the items left behind by the Divine King to recover. Could Tai Zheng see through the power of laws that protected the Divine King's remains? "Jianshan, since your friend isn't in any danger, there's no need for you to leave in a hurry. Come, have a drink with me," Tong Tian laughed. With a wave of his hand, he filled the table with delicacies again. He said rather proudly, "I have a large amount of delicacies on me. It's enough for us to eat for several hundred years. Many of them are treasures of the world. Jianshan, sit. Let's chat as we eat." Jianshan hesitated for a while when he saw the table of delicacies. He could not turn them down, so he just sat down and began to chat with Tong Tian. "Brother Jianshan, the armor you're wearing seems to have been taken away by that over-god from the Mo family. Don't you plan on getting it back?" Tong Tian asked as he crossed his legs. He seemed like a sloppy person. A cold light flashed through Jianshan's eyes, and he said, "My armor can't be taken away so easily. Before long, I'll personally pay a visit to the Mo family in the Divine Kingdom of Qingyang. The Mo family of the Divine Kingdom of Qingyang isn't anything good. I don't like them either. Brother Jianshan, when you visit the Mo family, you have to call me. I'll protect you," Tong Tian said confidently. Tong Tian said rather confidently. Even though he was only a mid-god, he did not take the Mo family seriously at all. "Thank you for your kind intentions, Brother Tong Tian. However, I should be enough to deal with the Mo family." Jianshan clasped his fist. Afterwards, he seemed to think of something and asked, "Brother Tong Tian, may I ask who obtained the Divine King's flying sword in the end?" Jianshan stared at Tong Tian with brimming interest. Now that he no longer had the flying snow sword, he just happened to need a higher quality flying sword. The golden flying sword seems to have been taken away by an old man who also comprehended the way of the sword. But I have to say the old man really is bold, actually daring enough to go against the heavenly demon religion. That's the heavenly demon religion we're talking about. Across the entire cloud plane, There aren't many organizations that dare to provoke them for no reason. That old man really is fearless. He has no idea how powerful the heavenly demon religion is. Tong Tian became serious when he mentioned the heavenly demon religion. The heavenly demon religion. Jianqin was slightly surprised. This was the second time he had heard about the heavenly demon religion. He could not help but become even more curious. Brother Tong Tian, may I ask if you can tell me about the heavenly demon religion? Chapter 1767. He growled. I don't know a lot about the heavenly demon religion. All I know is that the heavenly demon religion was only established in the past 1,000,000 years. When the heavenly demon religion was first established, it was extremely weak, but it developed at an extremely shocking rate. In just 1,000,000 years, it became a renowned organization, even with the entire cloud plane in perspective. Very few people are bold enough to provoke them. Even our clan fears the heavenly demon religion slightly. If there isn't too great of a conflict of interest, we won't be willing to provoke them. The heavenly demon religion is actually so powerful. Doesn't that mean Ling Hogong, who obtained the Divine King's flying sword, is in deep trouble? Jianqin frowned as he secretly worried for Ling Hogong. Oh right, Brother Tong Tian. May I ask what the strength of the vice leader of the heavenly demon religion, Huayan? And how powerful is the leader of the heavenly demon religion? Jianqin followed up with another question. I only know that the vice leaders of the heavenly demon religion all possess strength at the primordial realm. I don't know the specifics, but Uncle Qin knows more than me. Tong Tian looked at Qin Zheng. Qin Zheng did not turn down Jianqin's question. After a moment of thought, he said, the heavenly demon religion on the cloud plane is only a branch. There are branches of the heavenly demon religion on other planes and even some great planets. It must be said that the person who founded the heavenly demon religion is truly impressive. His abilities are so great that in just 1,000,000 years, he managed to develop the heavenly demon religion to its current scale while enduring the pressure and threats from all directions. Qin Zheng paused when he reached there, and Jianqin listened with all his attention. He said nothing, as this was a great opportunity for him to understand the heavenly demon religion. It was even possible that the information he heard from Qin Zheng was very difficult to purchase outside, as it required a certain level of strength before he could come into contact with it. Qin Zheng continued, on the cloud plane, there are a total of 3 vice leaders of the heavenly demon religion, and they're all infinite primes. As for Huayan, he's at early infinite primes, so he's on par with the other 2 vice leaders. As for the leader, no one has ever heard of the existence of a leader of the heavenly demon religion ever since the heavenly demon religion was founded. It's as if there's no leader in the heavenly demon religion. What? There's no leader of the heavenly demon religion? Only vice leaders? Jianqin was stunned. He was extremely surprised. We don't know if there's a leader of the heavenly demon religion or not. In short, no one has ever heard of a leader of the heavenly demon religion in all these years. There's only a great elder, and this great elder is the actual controller of the heavenly demon religion. Qin Zheng's voice was rather heavy. As soon as he mentioned the great elder of the heavenly demon religion, he became extremely stern and filled with deep fear. Great elder? Jianqin murmured. Without even thinking, he knew that the great elder was a supreme expert. Although the heavenly demon religion on the cloud plane has 3 infinite primes and is not weak, they're not taken seriously by some of the peak organizations on the cloud plane. What they truly fear is the mysterious great elder of the heavenly demon religion. It's exactly because of the great elder's existence that the peak organizations on the cloud plane fear the heavenly demon religion slightly, unwilling to provoke them so easily. Uncle Qin, is the great elder of the heavenly demon religion really that powerful? He's actually able to support an organization all by himself? He's able to make so many peak organizations fear him. This time, even Tong Tian was shocked. Clearly, he did not know about this either. Qin Zheng nodded. The great elder is indeed extremely powerful. The reason why the heavenly demon religion can become one of the peak organizations on the cloud plane is completely because of the Great Elder. However, the Great Elder of the heavenly demon religion is extremely mysterious. Very few people have seen him personally. It's said that the Great Elder has only taken action 3 times since the founding of the heavenly demon religion. The first time was on the Delight Plane. At that time, the heavenly demon religion offended a large organization on the Delight Plane. The organization launched a devastating attack on the heavenly demon religion, which led to the Great Elder of the heavenly demon religion. The Great Elder of the heavenly demon religion directly slaughtered his way into the organization's sect. In the end, neither of the 2 chaotic primes managed to escape. They were killed off. From then on, the organization vanished from the Delight Plane. The second time was on planet Tianming, one of the 81 great planets. The master of the planet destroyed the branch of the heavenly demon religion on the planet. The Great Elder of the heavenly demon religion and the master of the planet engaged in a great battle in outer space. In the end, the master of the planet was slain by the Great Elder of the heavenly demon religion. When he reached there, even Qin struggled to remain composed. His expression changed, and he sighed gently. The master of the planet was a Grand Prime, yet he actually died at the hands of the Great Elder of the heavenly demon religion. Jianqin and Tong Tian's expressions changed when they heard that. The Great Elder of the heavenly demon religion was just too terrifying. Even a Grand Prime had died at his hands. After all, Grand Primes stood at the apex of the saints' world. They were at the end of the path of cultivation. They were equivalent to immortal exalts in the immortals' world. Jianqin had heard about the Anata Grand Prime, the Nirvanic immortal exalt, and the old clansman of the Azulite twin swords. Then what about the third time the Great Elder of the heavenly demon religion took action? Tong Tian asked impatiently. Qin Zheng's expression became mixed. He said, the third time was 100,000 years ago. The Great Elder of the heavenly demon religion fought against a Hall Elder of the God Clan on the Godnigma plane. The Hall Elder was also a Grand Prime. Although he was an early Grand Prime, he comprehended the laws of destruction. He was so powerful that the master of planet Tianming could not compare to him. Qin Zheng did not continue when he reached there. Then what was the result? Did the Hall Elder of the God Clan win? Or did the Great Elder of the heavenly demon religion win? Jianqin asked. He cared about this very much. Wasn't the God Clan on the Godnigma plain Taita's clan? There was no victory or defeat in that battle. It seemed to have ended without a conclusion, answered Qin Zheng. Jianqin and Tong Tian looked at each other. Ended without a conclusion? Didn't that mean that the Hall Elder of the God Clan was unable to do anything to the Great Elder of the heavenly demon religion? It was also because the Great Elder of the heavenly demon religion had taken action 3 times that the heavenly demon religion's status in the saints' world was established. As a result, the peak organizations on the cloud plane were unwilling to provoke the heavenly demon religion so easily. Even if the heavenly demon religion went overboard on the cloud plane, they would turn a blind eye to it as long as it didn't affect the interests of the peak organizations. Chapter 1768. Jianqin sank into his thoughts. When he first saw the heavenly demon religion in the divine King Duanmu's dwelling, he had realized that it was an extremely powerful organization, but he had never thought that the heavenly demon religion would be so powerful. In particular, the mysterious Great Elder who had founded the heavenly demon religion was so powerful that even Jianqin felt extremely shocked. Even a Grand Prime of the saints' world had died to his hands. Such a powerful existence was something that the current Jianqin could only look up to. Jianqin became even more worried for Ling Hogong. In order to obtain the divine King Duanmu's flying sword, Ling Hogong had actually offended such a great organization. With the power of the heavenly demon religion, even if Ling Hogong had reached the same level as the divine King Duanmu when he was still alive, he would not be able to fend them off. Although Jianchen was nowhere close to Ling Hogong, Ling Hogong's obsession with the way of the sword and his straightforwardness had won Jianchen's admiration. He naturally did not wish for Ling Hogong to be harmed by the heavenly demon religion like this. Uncle Qin stared at Jianchen as if he could see through Jianchen's worries with a single glance. He said, "You don't need to worry too much. Duanmu should have offended one of the 3 vice leaders, Huayan. However, the branch of the heavenly demon religion on the cloud plane has 3 vice leaders. Huayan alone doesn't represent the entire heavenly demon religion on the cloud plane. As for the mysterious great elder of the heavenly demon religion, you don't need to worry about him at all. Unless the entire heavenly demon religion on the cloud plane is destroyed, only then will the mysterious great elder of the heavenly demon religion be forced out. As for the personal grievances of the vice leaders of the heavenly demon religion, the great elder will naturally not interfere with them with his status. Even without the terrifyingly powerful great elder, just the vice leader of the heavenly demon religion, Huayan, is still an undefeatable enemy to Ling Hogong." Jianchen sighed gently. He could only pray for Ling Hogong now. There was nothing he could do to help. Tong Tian's eyes swiveled when he heard Jianchen's words. He said to Jianchen, "Jianchen, if you want to protect that old man who obtained Duanmu's Divine King's flying sword, I have an idea." "What idea?" Even though Jianchen knew that Tong Tian's idea was probably nothing good, he could not help but ask when he saw Tong Tian's mischievous smile. Tong Tian chuckled. "It's very simple. Jianchen, join our Tong family. With your talent, you'll definitely receive the full support of the clan once you join us. You'll also possess an extremely great status in the clan. As long as you become a member of our Tong family, protecting your friend will be a piece of cake." Qin Zheng also looked at Jianchen, waiting for Jianchen's reply. There was a sliver of anticipation in his calm eyes. Even he was extremely shocked by Jianchen's talent. He had clearly observed Jianchen's character in the Divine King's dwelling, so he was extremely satisfied. As a result, he obviously hoped that Jianchen could join the Tong family very much. A gleam of light flashed through Jianchen's eyes. He did not answer Tong Tian. Instead, he asked, "Is your Tong family not afraid of the heavenly demon religion?" "Our Tong family naturally fears the heavenly demon religion a little, but we don't fear the vice leaders of the heavenly demon religion. Instead, we fear the great elder behind the heavenly demon religion." This time it was not Tong Tian who spoke. Instead, it was Qin Zheng who stood to one side. Qin Zheng stared at Jianchen with shining eyes and promised seriously, "Jianchen, if you agree to join our Tong family, not only will our Tong family nurture you with everything we have, but we'll also provide you with various precious pills, cultivation methods, battle skills, and rare heavenly resources to assist you in maturing. At the same time, our Tong family can protect your friend who has offended the vice leader of the heavenly demon religion." Huai and Jianchen fell silent. Without a doubt, Tong Tian's Tong family was one of the peak organizations on the cloud plane. They did not even take the vice leader of the heavenly demon religion, who is an infinite prime, seriously. If he really did receive the full nurturing of such a powerful clan, breaking through with the chaotic body would obviously be extremely easy. This was because even in the immortals world, those who had reached major achievement in the chaotic body would be nurtured by large sects and clans without any exception. If they did not have the full support of a large organization, very few people would be able to cultivate the chaotic body to a high level through their own efforts. However, if he joined the Tong family, it would be unavoidable for him to come across primordial realm experts. If he exposed the secret of the twin swords before these experts, it would be a disaster for him. No one would be able to protect him. After a short moment of silence, Jianchen made up his mind very quickly. He said to Qin Zheng and Tong Tian apologetically, "Thank you for your good intentions, Brother Tong Tian and Senior. However, I'm used to being free, so I can't stand being restrained. As a result, I don't want to join any organization for now. Moreover, the Saints' world is so large. I still want to see the world, so I won't be staying on the cloud plane for too long. Gentian's rejection disappointed Qin Zheng and Tong Tian, but they recovered very soon. Tong Tian chuckled aloud and said, without minding it at all, "It's fine, it's fine. Since Brother Gentian doesn't like being restrained, I obviously won't make things difficult for you. Come, Brother Gentian, let's drink. Whether you join our Tong family or not, I've made a friend of you." Tong Tian raised his cup and said generously. Gentian raised his cup as well and said, "If I succeed in cultivation in the future, if Brother Tong Tian needs my help, I will definitely do my best to repay you for saving me today." With that, Gentian clinked his cup with Tong Tian's and drank all the wine in the cup. Tong Tian also tossed a medallion to Gentian and said, "This is my keepsake. If Brother Gentian comes across any problems you can't handle in the future, you can use this to find me in the Tong family. As long as you don't provoke a primordial realm expert, I'll help you deal with any problems." At the same time, Tong Tian let out Xinjian. Xinjian was still unconscious right now. He was very heavily injured. Gentian immediately placed Xinjian in the Bright Moon Divine Hall. At the same time, he shoved a few healing pills into Xinjian's mouth. "Tong Tian, let's see where you run off to. You won't be able to escape. Even if you escape from the cloud plane, I can still find you." At this moment, a furious bellow rang out from afar. A red streak of light shot over with lightning speed. From afar, it seemed like a meteor. Tong Tian's hand immediately trembled when he heard the voice, and some of the wine in his cup spilled out. As if he had seen something extremely terrifying, he became flustered. He said, Why has she chased me all the way here? Didn't I just annul the engagement? Is there a need for her to hate me so much? She's actually chasing after me without letting me go. Let's go. Uncle Qin, let's go. Let's go. We can't let her catch up. I can't beat her right now." At that moment, Tong Tian no longer had the usual pride and confidence on his face. A sliver of fear appeared in his eyes as he looked at the red figure hurrying over. A strange expression was revealed on Qin Zheng's face when he saw Tong Tian's terrified manner. He helplessly shook his head. His eyes focused on the red figure that was swiftly approaching. With a wave of his sleeve, he brought Tong Tian and disappeared without a trace. It was as though he had teleported. "Brother Gentian, I'll be leaving first. Let's meet again another day." Tong Tian's voice rang out in Gentian's ears as he left. He left in an extremely great hurry, not even bothering to take the delicacies on the table. "Tong Tian, you bastard, come out. You can't escape from me. No matter where you run, I'll catch you. I'll skin you alive and pull out your tendons." The woman's furious roar rang out from behind. It was extremely fiery. Chapter 1769. Gentian could not help but shake his head as he watched Tong Tian basically flee in a hurry. He bitterly smiled. Tong Tian gave him the feeling that he was fearless, but it seemed like he had a counter as well. The woman behind him had caught up. He had actually been so frightened that he did not even have the time to put away the table full of delicacies. Tong Tian had even tossed aside the expensive table and chairs that were clearly made from precious materials. Gentian could not help but look at the woman, who shot over with lightning speed. He was rather curious about the woman. Just what kind of person could frighten Tong Tian to such an extent? Under Gentian's gaze, the woman was engulfed in flames. She gave off a terrifyingly high temperature as she flew to the mountain where Gentian was. She did not land, instead hovering in the air as she coldly stared down. She was a woman who seemed to be in her 20s. She possessed a pair of almond-shaped eyes that shone with an icy cold light. Her oval face seemed to have been carefully sculpted, possessing a natural beauty that was impossible to find fault with. Her cherry-like lips were red and alluring, making people want to get close to her. Without a doubt, she was an alluring woman. She hovered in the air as her fiery red hair fluttered in the wind. She wore a set of red robes that perfectly outlined her demonic figure, coupled with her red boots and the roaring flames on her. She seemed like a fire fairy. Who are you? The woman did not chase after Tong Tian. She hovered in the air and asked Gentian coldly. Her beautiful face was currently filled with gloominess. Gentian stood on the ground. He did not care about the woman's tone at all. He smiled indifferently and said, I am Gentian, a nobody. May I ask for your name, young miss? The woman's expression did not change at all. She stared at Gentian coldly and said, You have no right to know who I am. I saw you with that bastard Tong Tian earlier. Tell me the truth. What is your relationship with Tong Tian? If you hide anything, I will never forgive you. Gentian's expression did not change. He had already understood that the woman was probably engaged to Tong Tian through what Tong Tian had said earlier. However, Tong Tian had taken the initiative to break off the engagement, which was why the woman had chased after him all over the world. Young master Tong Tian saved my life before. He's a good friend of mine, replied Gentian. However, the woman's eyes turned cold when she heard that Gentian was good friends with Tong Tian. She called out angrily, He can't be a good person to be friends with that bastard. With that, the woman directly sent a palm strike towards Gentian. With that, the flames around her immediately surged, condensing into a huge hand of flames before her in a single instant. She directly crushed down on Gentian. Gentian frowned. The woman was unreasonable. She was rude and unreasonable. With a thought from Gentian, the power of the laws of the sword in the surroundings immediately gathered. It condensed into a huge strand of sword chi before shooting towards the huge hand of flames. With a boom, the woman's hand of flames immediately shattered. However, the sword chi condensed from Gentian's power of the laws of the sword did not disperse. It shone with dazzling white light and surged into the sky. Over God! The woman frowned as she stared at the strand of sword chi above Gentian's head. Miss, aren't you going a little too far? Gentian said calmly. The woman was a lake god, so she was much more powerful than Tong Tian. It would have been better if Gentian had not said anything. Now that he had, the woman's temper immediately flared up again. She called out, So what if I'm going too far? Don't think that I'm afraid of you just because you're an over-god. As soon as she finished speaking, the flames around the woman in red suddenly disappeared. However, in the next moment, a strong electric light surrounded her body. A long sword with flashing blue electric arcs also appeared in her hand. The laws of lightning. Gentian was surprised. The laws of lightning were also known as one of the laws with the greatest offensive power among the 3,000 laws. They were on par with the laws of the sword and the laws of destruction. Apart from comprehending the laws of fire, the woman had actually comprehended the laws of lightning as well. At this moment, the woman had already charged towards Gentian with her sword. Apart from using the laws of lightning, she was clearly even faster. Her sword flickered with blue arcs of lightning, sending bolts of lightning towards Gentian from time to time. Gentian condensed sword chi with his fingers as he fought against the woman with sword chi. He moved extremely leisurely, but he became even more surprised inside. This was because he discovered that even though the woman was only a lake god, her battle prowess was extremely great. Even among lake gods, she was probably unmatched. If it were not for the fact that his laws of the sword had already broken through to sword spirit and reached the level of over-gods, he probably would not have been the woman's opponent. Lei Ming! At this moment, the woman called out. She pointed her sword at the sky as a strange presence radiated from her. It fused with the laws of the world. In the next moment, a bolt of lightning appeared out of nowhere. With a deafening rumble of thunder, the bolt of lightning struck the woman's sword with great precision. Immediately, the sword shone with dazzling light. Afterwards, as the woman pointed her sword at Gentian, the lightning condensed on the sword immediately shot towards Gentian. Gentian's eyes narrowed. He extended a finger calmly and sent out a powerful strand of sword chi that collided with the bolt of lightning. It immediately erupted with resplendent sparks. The sword Qi and the bolt of lightning actually collapsed at the same time. Neither of them gained the upper hand. The mountain Jianchen stood on had already collapsed silently. What strength! Jianchen could not help but sigh in admiration. The woman was just too powerful. She was clearly only a late god, but her battle prowess had vaguely surpassed the limits of late gods. Thunderfire strikes the sky. The woman called out. This time, the laws of lightning and the laws of fire revolved around her at the same time. The power of the two laws turned into two chains that shot towards Jianchen. Jianchen became rather stern. He felt like he was facing an over-god when he faced the woman's attack. The woman's thunderfire strikes the sky vaguely possessed the might of an early over-god. Jianchen formed a seal with his hand, and a golden strand of sword Qi condensed. It shot out as a golden streak of light, colliding with the chains condensed from the laws of fire and the laws of lightning. Boom! With a rumble, the woman's laws of lightning and the laws of fire collapsed at the same time. However, Jianchen's golden sword Qi did not weaken at all. It continued towards the woman, but it had dimmed slightly. The golden sword Qi was just too fast. It destroyed the two divine chains of laws of the woman in red and arrived before her almost instantly. The woman's face did not change. Suddenly, a set of fiery red armor appeared, enveloping her. Chapter 1770. Nice armor. Jianchen could not help but praise as he stared at the woman's armor. He could tell with a single glance that the armor was a defensive treasure of very high quality. Even the overgods who had entered the divine king's dwelling did not possess such a treasure. The woman in red was skilled in two laws and possessed such great battle prowess, so she was definitely a prodigy. Coupled with the fact that she was bold enough to chase after Tong Tian in broad daylight, all of this indicated that the woman in red had quite the background. Jianchen had already learned that large sects and clans would have prodigies, whether it was in the saints' world or the immortals' world. Those who could become heaven's chosen were all people with heaven-defying aptitudes. In addition, the large sects and clans spared no effort in grooming these heavens chosen. In the end, almost every one of these heavens chosen had extremely strong combat strength. Very few people in the same realm were their opponents. They had the title of invincible in the same realm. As a matter of fact, many prodigies even possessed the ability to challenge those at a higher level of cultivation. Killing regular experts at a higher level of cultivation was nothing difficult for them. To no surprise, the woman in red was one of the prodigies. She was clearly only a late god, but she vaguely possessed the battle prowess of an early overgod. Even though she had barely reached that level, it was still impressive enough. Flames of fury burned in the woman's eyes. She became even more furious when she heard Jianchen praise her armor. She was completely enraged. This was because, in her opinion, Jianchen was blatantly humiliating her. He was telling her that she would have been heavily injured if it were not for the armor. I'll remember you. Let's wait and see. Next time, no one will be able to save you, the woman in red said coldly. She knew that she was not Jianchen's opponent. Flames surrounded her as she fled without even looking back. She gritted her teeth and sighed. Tong Tian, you bastard. Do you think you can escape from me just because you've been taken away? Humph, let alone the fact that you're still on the cloud plane. Even if you've left the cloud plane, I'll still be able to find you. I swear that once I catch you, I'll skin you alive and pull out your tendons. Jianchen watched the woman in red leave as he secretly shook his head. No wonder Tong Tian wanted to break off the engagement. Although the woman in red possessed alluring beauty, she had such a fiery temper, and she just happened to be so powerful. Anyone who got together with her would be doomed. Afterwards, Jianchen rose into the air and left. After flying for a while, he found a city. He spent some divine crystals to purchase a map, and when he found his location, he found the city he was in. He immediately frowned. He had already arrived at the border of the divine kingdom of 9 stars. He was close to the border of the divine kingdom of three cauldrons. The divine kingdom of Pingtian was directly connected to the divine kingdom of 9 stars and 3 cauldrons. If he wanted to return to the divine kingdom of Pingtian right now, he would basically have to cross through the entire territory of the divine kingdom of 9 stars. The divine kingdom of 9 stars was extremely vast. Even its diameter was several billion kilometers. Looks like it'll take almost a month to return to the Dong and province of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Tong Tian's Uncle Qin is just too terrifying. I've only been unconscious for 4 hours, yet they've brought me here from the divine King Duanmu's dwelling. Jian Qin smiled bitterly. He felt very helpless. It would take him almost a month to return from a journey that would take him less than 4 hours. In the territory of the divine kingdom of 9 stars, there was a sudden flash of white light several tens of thousands of meters in the sky. Like a bolt of lightning, it tore through the sky with unimaginable speed. In an instant, it had passed through the sky and vanished into the horizon. In the distance, the flash of lightning gradually vanished, revealing a young man in white robes. Streaks of light flickered around the young man as he used the speed of the lightning to fly forward with lightning speed. The young man was Jian, who was crossing through the entire territory of the divine kingdom of 9 stars. Using the linear lightning release to travel really is quite effective. I can cross such a great distance in a single instance. If I continue like this, it'll take me a lot less time to return to the divine kingdom of Pingtian, Jian murmured to himself. Some exhaustion filled his face. He could not use the linear lightning release endlessly, or even he would not be able to endure the exhaustion. The journey through the territory of the divine kingdom of 9 stars was not as smooth as he had imagined it to be. Not only were there bandits blocking the way, but there were also powerful beasts. Without the strength of a god, it would be very difficult to ensure his safety. This was especially true for some ferocious beasts and birds. Even though they did not take human form, they still possessed intelligence that was not weak. When they moved in groups, even heavenly deities would have to flee when they encountered them. If one wanted to pass through the entire territory of the divine kingdom, only over-gods would be able to do so without any worries. At this moment, Jian's eyes suddenly narrowed. He saw a large group of people suddenly appear in the distant sky. They ranged from gods to origin realm experts. They were so densely packed that they blotted out the sun. From afar, it seemed like a huge black cloud hovering in the sky, heading towards the depths of the divine kingdom of 9 stars. There are so many people. There's at least several tens of millions, or even over 100 million. It looks like they're moving. What's going on? Why are there so many people moving? Jian was curious. He immediately changed directions and flew in their direction. Brother, may I ask what has happened? Jian stopped a middle-aged deity and asked. The middle-aged man was dejected. He was in low spirits. When he heard Jian's question, he raised his head and glanced at Jian. He ignored him and directly flew past Jian. Jian was surprised, but he did not mind. He glanced past the crowd and stopped another early god. He gave off the pressure of a sword spirit expert and asked the same question again. The early god's face immediately changed when he sensed Jian's chilling pressure. He replied politely, Senior, we're all people of the divine kingdom of 3 cauldrons. The heavenly demon religion's 9th army is currently attacking the divine kingdom of 3 cauldrons. Wherever the 9th army of the heavenly demon religion passes by, lives will be lost. The divine kingdom of 3 cauldrons is about to be destroyed. We've all fled to the divine kingdom of 9 stars from the divine kingdom of 3 cauldrons in hopes that we can survive. It's the heavenly demon religion again, Jian frowned. He had an ill omen. The heavenly demon religion had already attacked the divine kingdom of 3 cauldrons. They were extremely close to the divine kingdom of Pingtian. However, Jian became doubtful soon afterwards. The the heavenly demon religion was such a great organization. So why did they still attack the divine kingdom of three cauldrons? He had heard about the divine kingdom of three cauldrons before. It was a divine kingdom on the same level as the divine kingdom of Pingtian. The strongest expert, there was only the divine king. Logically speaking, an organization under the rule of a mere divine king should not have caught the attention of the heavenly demon religion. Chapter 1771. After a moment of silence, Genshin asked the old man again, "Then, do you know why the heavenly demon religion has declared war on the divine kingdom of three cauldrons? Has the divine kingdom of three cauldrons offended the heavenly demon religion?" As soon as the heavenly demon religion was mentioned, deep hatred appeared in the god's eyes. He said, "Why would the heavenly demon religion need a reason to wipe out the divine kingdom of three cauldrons? They're just a demonic religion. It's not like it's the first time they've wiped out divine kingdoms, sects, and clans." Genshin's face changed slightly when he heard that. He said, "Does the heavenly demon religion do these things often?" The god glanced at Genshin in a rather strange manner and said, "That's right. The heavenly demon religion does often wipe out divine kingdoms, sects, and clans. Does Senior not know about this?" Genshin became stern. He was basically certain that the heavenly demon religion had not wiped out the divine kingdom of three cauldrons because the divine kingdom of three cauldrons had offended them. That was because these things were nothing out of the ordinary for them. Right now, he was worried about whether the heavenly demon religion would continue to move against the divine kingdom of 9 stars or even the divine kingdom of Pingtian after wiping out the divine kingdom of 3 cauldrons. Although he had no attachment to these divine kingdoms, Genshin had already planned to establish himself in the Dong and province of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. After all, it was impossible for the people who had followed him to the Saints' World from the Tianyuan continent to follow him everywhere. He needed to find a place to settle them down. Genshin dared not waste any more time after learning about the heavenly demon religion's actions. He immediately rushed off, using the linear lightning release from time to time. He hurried towards the Dong and province of the divine kingdom of Pingtian as quickly as he could. Genshin crossed the entire divine kingdom of 9 stars in just 7 days as he traveled at full speed. He returned to the divine kingdom of Pingtian. "I'll be back in the Dong and province in 3 days at most." Genshin hovered in the sky above the divine kingdom of Pingtian as he looked in the direction of the Dong and province. Afterwards, he used the linear lightning release and vanished as a streak of light. Right now, he could only sigh at how short the linear lightning release could last. His terrifying speed could only last for less than a few seconds. Otherwise, he would have returned to the divine kingdom of Pingtian long ago with the speed of the linear lightning release. 2 days later, Genshin finally returned to the Dong and province. However, he did not go to God King Duanmu's dwelling. Instead, he directly flew to the dark cloud mountains. He ping of Pingtian, of Pingtian, of Pingtian, of Pingtian, of cultivation, of Pingtian, of Pingtian, of Pingtian, of Pingtian's. The matter at hand was to increase his strength as soon as possible. Once his chaotic body reached the 10th layer, he would be able to last for a while even against late over-gods with the advantage of the chaotic body. The dark cloud mountains had already been taken over by the powerful clans of the Dong and province. There were over a dozen of them in total, and they all sent people to mine high-grade divine crystals. There were even god-level ancestors sitting there. At this moment, on a flat mountain peak in the dark cloud mountain range, there were 2 old men sitting on the ground, playing chess as they chatted. Beside them, there were 2 young women respectfully pouring tea for them. Looking at their careful appearance, it was as if they were afraid that the slightest bit of tea would spill out. The disturbance caused by the divine king's dwelling has already lasted for several years. I really don't know when it'll end. A gray-robed old man sighed gently. An old man in simple robes sat before the gray-robed old man. The old man finished moving a chess piece and stared at the chessboard. He said leisurely, It said that a soul has already approached the Divine King's remains. The disturbance caused by the Divine King's dwelling has already reached its final stages. In my opinion, it'll end before long. The Divine King's dwelling has appeared in our Dong and province. It's just a pity that we were unable to benefit from it at all. The over-gods have taken all of it. As for us gods, we don't even have the chance to take part in it, the gray-robed old man said in pity. The old man chuckled when he heard that. It's a good thing that you don't have the right to take part in it. Look at how many of the experts have died. Half of the gods from the Wainer clan have died. Some of the other clans in the Dong and province have died as well. There have even been over-gods who have died in the depths of the dwelling. Not only have they failed to obtain the treasure, they've even lost their lives. In my opinion, it's not worth it at all. I heard that the people of the Emo clan and the Ando clan entered the dwelling before the over-gods. Do you think they've obtained anything from the dwelling? The gray-robed old man asked with interest. The old man shook his head without any hesitation at all. He said firmly, "Do you think they'll be able to survive? The over-gods aren't merciful people." Fair enough. The people of the Emo clan and the Ando clan are probably all dead already. It doesn't matter if they've obtained anything good or not. The over-gods won't spare them. The gray-robed old man nodded. He found that to be reasonable. The two old men both came from powerful clans in the Dong province. They had been specially sent over to watch over the place. On one hand, they were there to prevent people from trying to take advantage of this place, and on the other hand, they were there to supervise. As the two old men played chess leisurely and discussed the situation in the Divine King's dwelling with great interest, a young man in white robes appeared on the mountain silently. The young man concealed his presence, making him seem like an ordinary person. The two early gods actually failed to sense him at all when he approached them. It wasn't until he was standing beside the chessboard that the two old men who were playing chess suddenly discovered his existence. Their expressions suddenly changed in unison. "Who are you?" The two old men suddenly stood up and stared at Jianqin cautiously. Their hearts were filled with shock. The person who could approach them so silently was definitely an expert who was far more powerful than them. Who I am is not important. What's important is that this mine belongs to me from now on, the young man in white said calmly. To no surprise, he was Jianqin. The faces of the two old men changed when they heard that Jianqin wanted the mine. The gray-robed old man said coldly, "This mine belongs to our entire Dong province. Sir, do you want to become enemies with the entire Dong province?" "I never wanted to become enemies with the Dong province. If the Dong province wants to become enemies with me, I don't mind. Moreover, this mine doesn't belong to your Dong province. It belonged to the Liu family before, but it's been taken over by your powerful clans," Jianqin said. Before he entered God King Duanmu's dwelling, he was powerless against the powerful clans of the Dong province. All he could do was watch as they took over the place. But now, so what if he became enemies with the entire Dong province? Chapter 1772. The hearts of the two old men immediately sank when they saw how Jianqin did not show any fear, even after they had brought out all the organizations in the Dong province. They sensed that the situation was extremely bad. In particular, when they saw how indifferent Jianqin was when he mentioned the Dong province, the two old men could vaguely sense that the high-grade divine crystal mine had probably attracted an extremely powerful enemy this time. The two old men's faces sank. They looked at each other, and a vicious light appeared in the eyes of the gray-robed old man. He snorted coldly at Jianqin. "If you want to take the mine for yourself, you'll have to defeat the two of us first." As he spoke, a black, long sword appeared in the old man's hand. As he swung the long sword, streams of black light were swept up. As the layer of black light spread out, the blazing sun in the sky was covered by the light. The entire world became dark. Jianqin's expression did not change. He stood where he was without moving at all. He did not even raise his eyes completely ignoring the darkness. He extended a finger, and a strand of sword chi shot out. It shone with dazzling light as it radiated with a terrifying sword chi that caused the expressions of the two early gods from the Dong and province to change. Boom! Amidst the rumbling sound, the endless darkness that permeated the world immediately dissipated. The gray-robed old man spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was like a kite with a broken string as he powerlessly flew backwards. His expression was dispirited, and he had already suffered heavy injuries. The white-robed old man's expression changed when he saw this. He immediately flew over and caught the gray-robed old man. However, just when he placed his hand on the old man's back, his expression suddenly changed. He felt an extremely powerful and sharp sword chi suddenly appear, immediately causing his hand to ache. His hand had been reduced to a bloody mess. The white-robed old man was shocked. He stared at Jianqin, who stood there indifferently in shock. He was greatly shocked. The young man's strength was just too terrifying. Just a casual gesture from him possessed such unbelievable power. No one in the Dong and province could do something like that. His strength has completely surpassed late gods. Is this young man an overgod? The white-robed old man exclaimed in his heart. After coming to this conclusion, his heart immediately jumped violently. Without the slightest hesitation, he immediately fled with the gray-robed old man. At the same time, he sent a message to everyone who was mining, telling them to leave this place as quickly as possible. Gods were ancestors of large clans in the Dong and province. No one dared to question their words. The miners who were mining divine crystals in the mine immediately fled as quickly as they could after receiving the message from the white-robed old man. An overgod has come. He wants to take over the mine for himself. Everyone run. An overgod wants to kill us. If you don't want to die, run quickly. If you're just a little slower, you might end up being trapped here forever. All of a sudden, panic shouts came from all directions. All of the miners were so scared that their faces turned pale, and they ran even faster. Jianqin stood at the top of the mountain and watched on calmly. He did not stop them. Only when all the miners had fled did he make his way to the very depths of the mine. With a wave of his hand, the bright moon divine hall landed firmly on the ground with a heavy thud. As the divine hall's door slowly opened, Shen Jian walked out in his black robes. As Jianqin hurried from the divine kingdom of 9 stars to the divine kingdom of Pingtian, Shen Jian's wounds had completely healed with the help of the pills. However, he had paid quite a price for consuming the fire cloud pill. His face was still sickly pale. Clearly, he was heavily injured. Jianqin could not help but sigh in amazement at the power of the 9 refined, life-returning pill again when he saw how Shen Jian still had not recovered. He had consumed the fire cloud pill as well, but he had paid a price as well. He should have been heavily injured. But not only did he make a full recovery after consuming Tong Tian's 9 refined, life-returning pill, but even his vitality had been replenished. Shen Jian, are you all right? Jianqin asked Shen Jian with some concern. Shen Jian glanced around indifferently and said, "Go cultivate at ease. Try to break through in the shortest amount of time possible. Leave the protectors to me. However, once overgods appear, you'll still need to deal with them personally." Jianqin clasped his fist at Shen Jian. After stowing away the bright moon divine hall, he directly made his way to the depths of the mine. Jianqin sat in the depths of the mine. As he circulated his cultivation method, the origin energy in the surroundings immediately surged over, condensing into a mist that revolved around Jianqin. Jianqin's body was like a bottomless pit, wildly absorbing the pure origin energy in the surroundings. As he absorbed it, the high-grade divine crystals hidden in the rocks in the surroundings immediately dimmed. They turned into ordinary rocks. Right now, Jianqin desperately needed to increase his strength. Even though using high-grade divine crystals was a little too wasteful with his current cultivation, he did not care. Shen Jian currently sat on a mountain peak outside the dark cloud mountains. He sensed the abnormality in the energy of the divine crystal mine, and his face immediately changed. He said, "Genshin's cultivation method really is impressive. He can actually absorb origin energy so quickly, and he can even absorb all the origin energy in the mine." The high-grade divine crystal mine is the treasure of the powerful clans in the Dong and province. They definitely won't give up on it so easily. I just wonder what they'll do next. As Genshin absorbed the high-grade divine crystal mine to cultivate, the two gods who watched over the dark cloud mountains hurried back as quickly as they could. They told all the powerful clans in the provincial city about what had happened in the dark cloud mountains without hiding anything. The dark cloud mountains had been taken away, which immediately angered all the powerful clans in the Dong and province. The gods from over a dozen clans gathered together as quickly as they could. They all discussed their plans with sunken faces. In the eyes of these powerful clans, the mine in the dark cloud mountains had become their treasure long ago. This was because the mine was directly linked to the future development and hopes of their clans. It was extremely important. Baiziki, is what you said true? Is the person who took over the dark cloud mountains really an overgod? The person who spoke was a middle-aged man in red robes. He spoke in an unquestionable tone. The white-robed old man dared not tarry at all when he heard the middle-aged man's question. He immediately stood up and said, "Although I can't see through his strength, he was able to injure the two of us with a casual strike. His strength has definitely surpassed late God. He's definitely an overgod without a doubt, and he has comprehended the laws of the sword." The middle-aged man in red robes was a late god. He gave off the feeling that he was close to becoming an overgod. He was one of the 3 peak experts in the Dong and province, one of the ancestors of the Hoof family. He had comprehended the laws of fire. Chapter 1773. I've seen Ling Hogong before. That person isn't Ling Hogong, so he shouldn't be a part of our divine kingdom of Pingtian. Aside from Ling Hogong, there's no one else in our divine kingdom of Pingtian who has reached the level of an overgod with the laws of the sword, the white-robed old man said firmly. Others, Baiziki, do you remember what that person looks like? The person who asked this time was an old man with an ordinary appearance. The presence he gave off was also a late god. The white-robed old man nodded. He drew in the air and used origin energy as a brush, drawing Genshin's portrait very quickly. I've never seen this person before. Even if I haven't personally seen the overgods of our divine kingdom of Pingtian, I've heard about them before. However, there's definitely no one like him. This person isn't from our divine kingdom of Pingtian. It looks like this person has come from another divine kingdom. Humph! An overgod from another divine kingdom has actually come to our divine kingdom of Pingtian to show off. Do you really think our divine kingdom of Pingtian has no overgods? Aside from the gods from the Wainer clan who had come to participate in the meeting, all the other overgods expressed that they had never seen Genshin before. Their voices were filled with anger. Clearly, none of them had entered the divine king's dwelling. Even if they had not seen Genshin. However, the god from the Wainer clan was not calm at all. He cried out inside, "How is this possible? How is this possible? He's actually still alive? He's actually made it out of the divine king's dwelling alive? And he wasn't even this powerful a few years ago. How has he become an overgod now? Should we tell them about Genshin?" The early god from the Wainer clan hesitated, but his face soon became gloomy. He thought, "The life stones of the 2 mid-gods of our Wainer clan have already shattered. Clearly, they've died in the divine king Duanmu's dwelling. Now, we're the only 2 early gods left in the Wainer clan. We won't be able to gain a foothold in the Dong and province with that kind of strength. We'll probably have to leave once the news of Wainer T and Wainer Sen's death spreads. Whatever. Our Wainer clan won't be able to obtain the mine anyway, so let's not get involved in this matter. Since that person called Jianshin was able to make it out of the Divine King's dwelling alive, and even the overgods were unable to do anything to him. It's best for our Wayner clan not to offend someone like that, just in case we end up being wiped out. As for Duanmu Divine King Yu, sigh, it's all our fault for underestimating the situation. The early god from the Wayner clan left in despair. He did not reveal any information about Jianshin at all. Only the Wayner clan possessed some information about Jianshin in the entire provincial city. The other powerful clans in the Dong and province naturally had no idea about him if he did not say anything. Everyone, please do not panic. Old Man has some ties with Overgod Bing Lu of the Yubing clan in the frigid snow province. I, Old Man, will set off right now and go to the Yubing clan in the frigid snow province to ask Overgod Bing Lu to uphold justice for us. The old man with an ordinary appearance who had asked by Ziki earlier spoke up. His aged eyes shot out a cold gleam. It was obvious that he was enraged as well. The old man was from the Nanyun clan. He was one of the 3 great experts of the Dong and province, along with the red-robed man. The gods of the Dong and province all beamed with joy when they heard that. Overgod Bing Lu was an expert who had made a name for himself many years ago. It was said that he had reached the peak of early Overgod and was only a step away from mid-Overgod. Whoosh! With an almost undetectable gust of wind, the late god from the Nanyun clan left, hurrying towards the frigid snow province. The frigid snow province was covered in ice and snow all year round. The climate was extremely cold, making it a world of ice and snow. No matter how scorching the sun in the sky was, it was unable to illuminate this world of ice and snow. There was an extremely ancient legend in the frigid snow province. It was said that long before the divine kingdom of Pingtian had been founded, a supreme primordial realm expert had once passed through here. His blood, which was filled with endless coldness, had formed the unique environment of the frigid snow province. It was said that the changes here had attracted many renowned experts in the region. There was even a divine king who had specially traveled from afar to investigate the place, but he found nothing in the end. As time went on, the frigid snow province became ordinary, gradually fading away from everyone's attention. In the end, it became a part of the divine kingdom of Pingtian's territory. The current frigid snow province had already become the world of the Yubing clan because they possessed an overgod. It was exactly because of this overgod that the Yubing clan was able to reign supreme in the frigid snow province, ruling over the entire province. Today, an extremely ordinary-looking old man had arrived outside the main entrance of the Yubing clan. He was the god of the Nanyun clan who had just hurried over from the divine kingdom of Pingtian. After arriving, the god of the Nanyun clan became extremely low-key. With a flip of his hand, an ancient jade pendant appeared. Just when he was about to approach the guards with the jade pendant, a boy in white just happened to walk out. The boy was quite young. He only seemed to be 6 or 7 years old, and he was only at sainthood. However, the eyes of the guards at the entrance of the Yubing clan suddenly narrowed when he appeared. They immediately became extremely respectful towards the boy. This was because they all recognized the boy. Although he was not powerful, he was a subordinate of Ancestor Bing Lu. The boy directly arrived before the ancestor of the Nanyun clan. He clasped his fist and said, "Senior, the ancestor invites you. Please come with me." The old man of the Nanyun clan was clearly surprised. He thought, "I never thought that Bing Lu would know as soon as I arrived. The fact that he's willing to send someone to receive me means that he hasn't completely forgotten about the past." With a sigh, the ancestor of the Nanyun clan followed behind the boy. In the end, they arrived on an extremely cold mountain of ice. The ancestor of the Nanyun clan narrowed his eyes when they arrived. He stared straight ahead. 100 meters away, the hunchbacked Bing Lu had his back towards them as he sat on a piece of ice with his dragon-headed staff. The ancestor of the Nanyun clan revealed mixed feelings when he saw the familiar figure. He could not help but Think about the times when he roamed the world with Bing Lu. Many years ago, he was close friends with Bing Lu. They had roamed the world together when they were still gods. However, Bing Lu had already become an over-god now, while he remained as a god. The disparity in strength seemed to have divided the two of them into two different people, causing their relationship to gradually drift apart unknowingly. Nanyan Tong, it's been several tens of thousand years since we last met, right? Bing Lu stood up slowly and sighed. Time flew by like an arrow. Now that he saw Nanyan Tong, he found him to be slightly unfamiliar. Yeah, it's been several tens of thousand years. Time sure passes quickly, said Nanyan Tong. Nanyan Tong said with a complicated expression. Looking at his old friend in front of him, he suddenly had a feeling that things had changed. If it were not for the importance of the matter this time, forcing him into a corner, he really did not want to trouble this familiar, yet slightly unfamiliar old friend. Bing Lu arrived before Nanyan Tong. With a wave of his hand, a stone table completely condensed from ice silently took shape. Bing Lu gestured for Nanyan Tong to sit down before sitting down leisurely. Nanyan Tong did not hold back. He sat down before Bing Lu. Although there was a huge difference in strength between them, he did not have to treat Bing Lu politely like he did with other overgods. Nanyan Tong, I don't think you've come all the way here just for a simple visit. Tell me what you're facing. I, Bing Lu, will do my best to help you, Bing Lu said. Chapter 1774. I really can't hide it from you. Nanyan Tong sighed bitterly. Nanyan Tong smiled bitterly and sighed gently. He said slowly, Bing Lu, our Dong, and province has indeed come across quite the trouble this time. Bing Lu listened to Nanyan Tong's explanation quietly. With a gentle wave of his sleeve, the power of ice and snow surged out, condensing into 2 cups of ice before him and Nanyan Tong in an instant. He pulled out some precious wine from his space ring and unhurriedly filled the 2 cups to the brim. He then gestured for Nanyan Tong to begin. Nanyan Tong picked up the cup of ice with both hands. After clinking his cup with Bing Lu's, he drank all the wine in the cup in a single gulp. He said slowly, a small high-grade divine crystal mine has appeared in our Dongan province. Even though it's just a small mine, its existence is extremely important to our Dong and province. It also relates to the future of our Nangang clan. However, this small high-grade divine crystal mine has been taken over by an overgod from another divine kingdom. With the current strength of our Dong and province, there's nothing we can do to threaten an overgod. As a result, I've specially come to visit Brother Bing Lu and see if you have any ideas on how to deal with this matter, Jianchen said. Bing Lu glanced at Nanyan Tong deeply and smiled gently. Since you've come to find me for this matter, it looks like your Nangang clan should have taken quite a large portion of the mine. If you can't take back the divine crystal mine, your Nangang clan should suffer the greatest loss. Nanyan Tong smiled awkwardly. Brother Bing Lu, you must be joking. Currently, our Nangang clan, the Hua family, and the Dong family have only taken 25% of the mine. The other 75% has been split between the other clans and organizations. Nanyan Tong paused when he reached there. He smiled mysteriously and continued. It's just that quite a few gods from the other clans in the Dong and province have entered the divine king's dwelling this time, but not many of them have come out. On the other hand, our Nangang clan hasn't suffered any losses other than the loss of a god a few years ago. The reason why Nanyan Tong had asked Bing Lu to share the mine with the Dong and province was because he had already predicted that the opening of the divine king's dwelling would cause the powerful clans in the province to suffer heavy losses. As a matter of fact, many of them would lose the right to exist in the provincial city. The distribution of the high-grade divine crystal mine would definitely need to be rearranged. By then, their Nanyan Tong would be able to take the greatest share through Bing Lu's influence. Bing Lu nodded slightly and said with composure, All right, I'll help you. Nanyan Tong, I hope you can become an overgod as soon as possible. Nangong Tong immediately beamed with joy when he received Bing Lu's reply. However, he seemed to think of something soon afterwards, and he added, "Oh right, it's said that the over-god who has taken over our dong and province has comprehended the laws of the sword." An over-god who has comprehended the laws of the sword? It would have been fine if Nangong Tong had not mentioned the laws of the sword, but Bing Lu's eyes immediately narrowed when he mentioned the over-god who had comprehended the laws of the sword. As an over-god, the information Bing Lu possessed was naturally not something a god like Nangong Tong could compare to. For example, Nangong Tong had only heard about a few over-gods from the divine kingdom of Pingtian. However, Bing Lu did not just know about over-gods from the divine kingdom of Pingtian. He basically knew all the over-gods from the surrounding divine kingdoms as well. He also knew that apart from Ling Hogong and Genshin, who he had worked with in the divine king's dwelling, there was no third over-god who had comprehended the laws of the sword in the surrounding divine kingdoms. Nangong Tong, do you know what the over-god who has comprehended the laws of the sword looks like? Bing Lu stared at Nanyun Tong with brimming interest. His carefree expression had vanished, replaced by a sliver of sternness. Nangong Tong was surprised by Bing Lu's change. He suddenly felt an ill omen, but he did not hesitate at all. Using his great memory, he drew out by Ziki's drawing once again. To no surprise, the person in the drawing was Genshin. When Bing Lu saw that the person in the drawing was actually Genshin, his face immediately changed. Afterwards, he gently placed down the cup of ice in his hand and sighed gently. "Brother Bing Lu, do you know this person?" Nangong Tong could not help but ask. After a moment of silence, Bing Lu said, "I do know this person. He used the jade of the divine king to enter the dwelling first. He's extremely powerful. 2 early over-gods died to his hands in the divine king's dwelling." Nangong Tong's face became rather ugly. He murmured, "He's actually one of the people who used the jade of the divine king to enter the dwelling? Was he the one who killed the god from our Nangong clan and the Hua family a few years ago?" Bing Lu stared at Nangong Tong sternly and said, "Nangong Tong, we once roamed the outside world together. For the sake of our past, I need to give you a piece of advice. Don't offend this person. His identity is anything but simple. Not only is he extremely powerful, but there's also the shadow of a supreme expert behind him." Bing Lu could not help but think of Fairy Haoyue when he mentioned a supreme expert. Even Fairy Haoyue's weak soul had managed to break through to the half-step primordial realm with the power of laws left behind by the divine King Duanmu. What did that mean? It meant that Fairy Haoyue was extremely powerful when she was alive. Her comprehension of the laws of the world had completely surpassed the half-step divine King Duanmu. Moreover, the young man with a fan who had saved Genshin in the end possessed an extremely great background as well. He actually had the personal protection of a divine king. Nangong Tong's face immediately changed when he heard Bing Lu's advice. "And don't look into the matter of the god who died from your Nangong clan. You can forget about the high-grade divine crystal mine. What he lacks right now is cultivation resources like divine crystals," Bing Lu continued. He was afraid that Nangong Tong would anger Genshin. Several days later, Nangong Tong returned to the Dong province. He did not divulge the contents of his conversation with Bing Lu, nor did he provide any explanations. He directly announced that the Nangong clan would give up on the high-grade divine crystal mine in the Dark Cloud Mountains and would no longer interfere. The Nangong clan's withdrawal immediately caused quite a stir in the Dong province. Although the Nangong clan did not provide any explanations, the powerful clans in the Dong province were no idiots. They could tell from the Nangong clan's attitude that the over-god of the sword who had taken over the high-grade divine crystal mine was not to be trifled with. After the Nangong clan announced their withdrawal from the distribution of the divine crystal mine, the Hua family and the Dong family remained silent about the matter of the Dark Cloud Mountains. Even the 3 peak clans of the Dong province did not dare to mention the Dark Cloud Mountains, so the other powerful clans naturally understood that they probably could not take back the divine crystal mine. Even though they were all extremely disappointed, there was nothing they could do. It's been 3 months, yet the powerful clans of the Dong and province still haven't done anything. The black-robed Shen Jian sat on a mountain peak in the dark cloud mountains. He looked in the direction of the Dong and province as he murmured to himself. It had already been 3 months since Jianqin began cultivating. During that time, Shen Jian had always been waiting for the powerful clans of the Dong and province, but clearly he had not even seen a single trace of them. After the 3 months of cultivation, many of the divine crystals buried deep underground in the small, high-grade divine crystal mine had been reduced to the most ordinary rock because they had lost all of their origin energy. Chapter 1775. Jianqin sat in the air in the depths of the mine. Dense and pure origin energy constantly gathered from the surroundings. It gathered so quickly that it had even surpassed Jianqin's rate of absorption. As a result, the origin energy around Jianqin had basically solidified. It had even formed a cocoon completely condensed from origin energy surrounding Jianqin. After all, Jianqin currently resided in a small, high-grade, divine crystal mine. There was an uncountable amount of high-grade, divine crystals hidden in the rocks around him. It was equivalent to being surrounded by divine crystals, so his rate of absorption was naturally astonishing. Jianqin's body was like a bottomless pit that could never be filled. He absorbed the pure origin energy in the surroundings wildly. As he absorbed and refined the massive amount of origin source energy, his chaotic Niden was growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even though the expansion of his chaotic Niden seemed to be extremely slow, where it would only grow slightly every day, it was unbelievably fast for Jianqin, who had cultivated the chaotic body for so many years. It was far, far faster than when he absorbed the energy from the Yin-Yang Saint Rock or when he absorbed the energy from the evil spirit. This was because he was absorbing the pure origin energy within the high-grade divine crystals this time. Not only was it extremely easy to absorb, but it was much easier to refine as well. Because of this, the chaotic inner core in his dantian had grown from the size of a pigeon's egg to the size of a chicken's egg in just a short 3 months after he had cultivated there. At this rate, my chaotic Niden will probably reach the limits of the 9th layer in a year, Jianqin thought to himself. At the same time, a sliver of excitement appeared in the depths of Jianqin's heart. He anticipated the 10th layer of the chaotic body. The 9th layer of the chaotic body could only allow his cultivation to reach deity, but once he broke through and reached the 10th layer, his cultivation would directly reach God. Although the 10th layer of the chaotic body was still unable to make him an overgod, the increase in his battle prowess was extremely great. After reaching the 10th layer of the chaotic body, just the toughness of his body had reached a level where he did not need to fear the attacks of gods. Even if he did not defend himself and stood there without dodging, gods would not be able to harm him at all. The 10th layer of the chaotic body was just too powerful. Even if regular gods used their full strength to strike Jianqin, they would not be able to cut through Jianqin's skin. Only when their attacks surpassed the limits of what the chaotic body could endure would they be able to break through Jianqin's chaotic body and draw blood. This was the power of the chaotic body. All cultivators of the chaotic body could be regarded as invincible once they reached a certain level of cultivation. Only the prodigies who were also invincible among the same level of cultivation had the right to challenge cultivators of the chaotic body. However, they were more likely to lose than win. Of course, being invincible among the same level of cultivation did not necessarily mean being the strongest among the same level of cultivation. As long as they could crush 99% of their opponents at the same level of cultivation, they could be regarded as invincible among the same level of cultivation. This was because there were just far too few people who could be their opponents at the same level of cultivation. As a matter of fact, there were only a handful of people who could match up to them on a plane or planet. As Jianqin cultivated, everything in the dark cloud mountains remained the same. The people of the Dong and province did not disturb Jianqin, which rather surprised Jianqin. However, Jianqin naturally had no idea that the reason why he was able to cultivate here peacefully after taking over the divine crystal mine in the dark cloud mountains was all because of what Bing Lu had told Nanyan Tong. In the blink of an eye, another year and 3 months passed. Jianqin had already cultivated in the dark cloud mountains for a year and a half now. During that time, the chaotic Niden in his dantian had finally reached the size of a fist. It had reached the limit of the 9th layer of the chaotic body. This speed was many times faster than when he was cultivating on the Tianyuan continent. However, Jianqin did not stop there. He continued to absorb the origin energy in the surroundings. Finally, after another half a month, the amount of chaotic force that the chaotic Niden in his dantian could contain exceeded the limit. It exploded with a boom, and surging chaotic force wreaked havoc in Jianqin's body with a presence of violence and destruction. Immediately, Jianqin's body trembled violently. His face paled in a single moment, and his forehead became covered with cold sweat. Droplets of chaotic blood even seeped out of Jianqin's pores with powerful pulses of energy, dyeing Jianqin red. With the chaotic body, he would have to go through the excruciating pain of refining the body every time he broke through. However, at the same time, the toughness of his body would increase by leaps and bounds with each breakthrough. Chaotic force was just too brutal. Without a powerful body, it was impossible to endure the power of chaotic force. As a result, the chaotic force would become even more powerful with each breakthrough, breaking the balance between the chaotic force and the body. As the chaotic force circulated through the body, it would injure the body, which was why it was so painful. Only when the body broke through with the chaotic force, becoming as powerful as the chaotic force, so that the chaotic force would not injure the body when it circulated through the body, could the pain be eliminated. This was the weakness of the acquired chaotic body. If he had the innate chaotic body, he would not have experienced the pain of refining the body at all, nor would he have gone through the pain of having his Niden shattered 18 times. A few days later, Jianqin made his way out of the mine at a steady pace. In just over a year, the small, high-grade divine crystal mine had lost all its divine crystals. It had become an ordinary mountain range. The moment Jianqin emerged from the mine, Shenzhen, who sat on a mountain several kilometers away, suddenly opened his eyes. With a flash, he suddenly vanished from the top of the mountain. When he reappeared, he was standing before Jianqin. The light in Shenzhen's eyes flickered as he stared at Jianqin. Due to the difference in Jianqin's cultivation method, he was unable to tell whether Jianqin had broken through or not. He could only vaguely sense that Jianqin's presence seemed to have become much more powerful than before. Moreover, his rather delicate body seemed to contain an extremely terrifying and great power. "You broke through?" Shenzhen asked Jianqin. Jianqin smiled faintly and said to Shenzhen, "Why don't you try attacking me?" A gleam of light flashed through Shenzhen's eyes when he heard that. With a clear thrum, the dark cloud stream sword appeared in his hand. Shenzhen stabbed at Jianqin with lightning-like speed under the power of the laws of the sword. As Shenzhen knew just how powerful Jianqin was, he did not hold back at all, even though he did not use any battle skills. He used his full strength. With his comprehension of the laws of the sword as a late god and his cultivation as an early god, the power of his strike was no weaker than a mid-god. It was even slightly stronger than regular mid-gods. Chapter 1776. However, Jianqin did not defend himself at all against Shenzhen's attack. He faintly smiled as he stood there leisurely with his hands behind his back. He actually wanted to use his body to block Shenzhen's attack. Shenzhen's cloud stream sword stabbed into Jianqin's chest with blinding light. Powerful sword qi permeated the surroundings, and Genshin's clothes were immediately reduced to dust. Not a single piece of cloth was left behind, revealing half of his body that did not seem particularly sturdy. The dark cloud-stream sword shone brightly as its extremely sharp tip pressed against Genshin's chest. However, to everyone's disbelief, Genshin was not injured at all after receiving Shin Jian's attack with his body. Shin Jian's attack, which was even more powerful than regular mid-gods, did not even leave a mark on Genshin's skin. The flickering light on the cloud-stream sword was unable to harm Genshin at all. Shin Jian's eyes immediately narrowed when he saw this. He was filled with disbelief. He knew long ago that Genshin's body was extremely powerful. Back on the Tianyuan continent, Genshin had fought Xiongzhong. He was clearly weaker than Xiongzhong, but he had managed to wear Xiongzhong down with his powerful body and supreme recovery. Afterwards, Shin Jian engaged in an intense battle with Genshin in outer space. The battle had even split the moon in half. At that time, Shin Jian's strength had completely overwhelmed Genshin. In the end, Genshin had managed to injure him with his powerful body and unimaginable recovery. However, Shin Jian had never thought that Genshin's body would be so unbelievably tough today. His full-powered attack was unable to harm him at all. Shin Jian was extremely shocked by this. Genshin nodded in satisfaction as he stared at his unscathed chest. He said, "According to my estimations, mid-gods can't harm me at all. Only late gods can get through my defenses." What a powerful body! Shin Jian stowed the cloud-stream sword away as he could not help but sigh in amazement. Let alone overgods. Even divine kings would not be able to do something like that. Even some primordial realm experts would not be able to do something like that. Gods were unable to threaten overgods, or even divine kings, because the origin energy of overgods and divine kings were much more powerful than gods. Even the laws they comprehended were more powerful than gods. Overgods and divine kings only needed to cast down a layer of defenses with origin energy and the power of laws, and gods would struggle to get through it. If they did not rely on the richness of origin energy and the power of laws, and just use their bodies to take on a strike from a mid-god, let alone overgods, even god-kings would be pierced. As a matter of fact, some weaker primordial realm experts would not even be able to endure an attack from a god with their bodies. That was unless they had a cultivation method that practiced the body, making their bodies especially tough. It was also because of this that there would always be a few heavily injured experts on the Saints' World or the Tianyuan continent who would be slain by insignificant figures who were clearly much weaker than them. This was precisely because their physical bodies were too weak. If they lost their powerful cultivation, even some weak existences that they regarded as ants could pose a threat to their lives. However, Genshin's chaotic body was an exception. With the current toughness of his chaotic body, even if he was heavily injured or unconscious, it would be impossible for mid-gods to kill him. As a matter of fact, they would not even be able to leave behind a single wound on Genshin. With my current strength, I'm confident that I can face late overgods. Even if I can't defeat them, I'll be able to last for a while with the toughness of my body and recovery, as well as the healing pills. The only pity is that my Radiant Saint Force is rather lacking right now, Genshin said confidently. His Radiant Saint Force was still at Class 9, which was equivalent to the Holy Emperor's. However, his body had already reached the level of gods, so Class 9, Radiant Saint Force would not be of much help to him anymore. Shin Jian nodded in agreement. If your Radiant Saint Force can keep up, your rate of recovery will definitely be even more impressive. Your first wound will probably heal before your enemies can even leave behind a second wound. Unless they're far more powerful than you, they won't be able to kill you. Oh, right. Why can't your Radiant Saint Force continue to increase? Shin Jian asked again. He also felt that Genshin's defense was rather lacking due to the weakness of Radiant Saint Force. Genshin frowned and sank into his thoughts. Ever since I condensed a soul core, my Radiant Saint Force has been unable to increase any further. I once heard from Fairy Hayua that condensing a soul core is followed by blooming 7-colored flowers and condensing a soul tree. Blooming 7-colored flowers and condensing a soul tree should be the realm after Radiant Saint Force. It's just that these realms have never appeared on the Tianyuan continent, so I know very little about them from Fairy Hayua. As a result, I don't know what blooming 7-colored flowers and condensing a soul tree are. After a moment of thought, Xinjian said, I think all you lack right now is a cultivation method for Radiant Saint Force. Once you find a cultivation method in the future, your Radiant Saint Force will continue to increase. I also think it's because I don't have a cultivation method. Jianqin agreed. Not only did he lack a cultivation method for Radiant Saint Force, but he also lacked a technique related to martial soul force. Shaking his head gently, Jianqin stopped thinking about this. It was pointless to think about it right now. With a wave of his hand, 2 cube-sized high-grade divine crystals suddenly appeared. They landed heavily on the ground with a heavy thud. Jianqin had obtained 3 cube-sized high-grade divine crystals from the dwelling of the Divine King's disciple. Now he directly took out 2 cubes. He pointed at the 2 cubes and said to Xinjian, I need to pay a visit to the Divine King's dwelling immediately. I might be able to help Fairy Hayua when the time comes. Xinjian, take these 2 blocks of high-grade divine crystals. You can take them to the Imperial City and exchange them for middle-grade divine crystals to increase your strength. A cube-sized high-grade divine crystal was a meter in length, width, and height, while standard divine crystal was around a centimeter in length, width, and height. As a result, a cube-sized divine crystal was equivalent to 1,000,000 standard divine crystals. If these 2 blocks of high-grade divine crystals were exchanged, they could be exchanged for 200 million standard, mid-grade divine crystals. Xinjian did not hold back. He accepted the 2 cubes without any hesitation. If he directly absorbed the 2 cubes, he probably would not even be able to break through to mid-god. However, if he exchanged them for mid-grade divine crystals, it would be enough for him to reach late god. After that, Jianqin and Xinjian separated for the first time after coming to the Saint's world. Jianqin directly hurried to the Divine King's dwelling, while Xinjian took the 2 cubes to the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. Chapter 1777. The Dark Cloud Mountains were several million kilometers away from the Divine King's dwelling, but this distance was nothing to Jianqin. Before long, Jianqin had crossed several million kilometers and appeared outside the Divine King's dwelling. The entrance to the Divine King's dwelling had been smashed open long ago. As a result, the entrance to the Divine King's dwelling that had been closed for countless years was now exposed to everyone. Anyone could enter and leave without any obstructions. Originally, there was not a single strand of origin energy in the Divine King's dwelling, but after the entrance was smashed open, the space within had become connected to the outside world. The dense origin energy from the outside world constantly surged into the dwelling, causing the dwelling that originally only contained Radiant Saint Force to be filled with origin energy. Jianqin concealed his presence and stood outside the Divine King's dwelling with an extremely low profile. He glanced around and habitually observed his surroundings. Although it had already been several years since God King Duanmu's dwelling had opened, there were still quite a few people gathered in the surroundings. They ranged from origin realm cultivators to gods. Without any exception, all of them would glance at God King Duanmu's entrance from time to time. Even when they conversed with the people around them, they would pay attention to the entrance. Jianqin hovered in the air. There were people all around him, and people would enter and exit the Divine King's dwelling from time to time. As a result, he did not stand out at all. As a matter of fact, he did not raise any attention at all. This was because people would enter or leave the Divine King's dwelling at almost every moment. Jianqin originally only glanced around out of habit, but his expression changed very soon. Even though there were many people moving around, he could clearly sense that some of the people who had not moved for a very long time seemed to be standing in a certain pattern. It seemed like they had formed a huge formation. Has someone set up a trap here? Jianchen was surprised. He carefully observed where the people stood again, without any change in his expression. He became even more certain of his guess. They just happened to be standing in an extremely large formation. This formation does seem rather familiar. Why does it feel a little like a teleportation formation? Jianchen became rather stern. After confirming it again, he finally confirmed that the formation cast down by these people was indeed a teleportation formation. This was because he had studied teleportation formations for some time on the Tianyuan continent. He was not exactly proficient in the field of teleportation formations, but he did have some understanding of them, so he recognized it very quickly. Someone is scheming against Fairy Hao-yu here, or they're scheming against the over-gods in the dwelling. Once they fall into the formation, they'll be teleported to another place. That place will definitely be extremely dangerous. It might even be a danger zone, Jianchen sighed. Jianchen's expression became rather ugly. He secretly rejoiced over the fact that he had come here. Otherwise, once Fairy Hao-yu emerged from the Divine King's dwelling, she would probably fall into someone else's trap. Although Fairy Hao-yu was very powerful when she was alive, a primordial realm expert, Jianchen refused to believe that Fairy Hao-yu could return to her peak strength with what the Divine King had left behind. At the same time, over 30 overgods constantly bombarded the powerful power of laws in the depths of the Divine King's dwelling. Although the power of laws was powerful, it lacked backup. Once it was depleted, it could not be replenished. As a result, after such a long period of attacks, the layer of power had become extremely fragile. Only a thin layer remained. They could even clearly see Fairy Hao-yu in a white dress through the power of laws. Fairy Hao-yu was no longer an illusionary soul. She had condensed her own body, and after this period of recovery, her cultivation had reached peak god as well. She was only a step away from overgod. The Divine King Duanmu's remains had vanished from beside Fairy Hao-yu. Only a pile of white ashes remained where the Divine King had been seated. Quick, everyone put in more effort. The layer of power of laws is about to disperse. The Divine King Duanmu's belongings are about to end up in our hands. A late overgod among the overgods who attacked the power of laws called out. He immediately struck out with his full strength, striking the thin layer of power viciously. The remaining overgods all roused with interest, and they began to strike out as hard as they could. Although Fairy Hao-yu had obtained the Divine King Duanmu's space ring, were they supposed to fear a soul that had just condensed a body when there were so many of them? Boom! The thin layer of power of laws finally dispersed after enduring the full-powered attacks of everyone present. It slowly dispersed, and Fairy Hao-yu, who had been protected by the power of laws the entire time, was finally exposed. As soon as the power of laws dispersed, Kai turned into a blur and shot towards Fairy Hao-yu as quickly as he could. He directly reached towards Fairy Hao-yu's space ring with his powerful hands as his eyes burned with desire. As for Fairy Hao-yu herself, everyone present could sense that she was only a late god, so they did not take her seriously at all. As soon as Kai moved, the other late overgods moved as well. They flew towards Fairy Hao-yu in a hurry. They were no slower than Kai. Behind them were the mid-overgods, and there were even a few late overgods. They were slower, so they fell behind. However, even though they were not as powerful as late overgods, they were fearless. They directly took part in the battle. Normally, very few of them would be bold enough to provoke late overgods. But now, before the treasures left behind by the Divine King Duanmu, all of them cast aside their worries. How dare you! It was also at this moment that Fairy Hao-yu opened her eyes. She stared at the overgods who charged towards her coldly. Her bearing was filled with supreme dignity. At that moment, she seemed to have become a supreme god. She seemed to view everyone as ants. Even when she looked at the overgods, they seemed to be so weak that she could crush them with a single finger. The hearts of the overgods immediately shivered when they saw Fairy Hauyue's gaze. Although Fairy Hauyue had not recovered her strength, her former dignity remained. Just a single glance from her was enough to make overgods shiver in fear. However, Fairy Hauyue had not recovered her strength yet. The overgods all knew that she was only a late god, so she was unable to deter them at all. Chapter 1778. The full moon was extremely bright. It shone with pure moonlight, enveloping Fairy Hauyue. Fairy Hauyue was filled with a sense of holiness as she bathed in the pure, white moonlight. She was like a fairy of the moon that had been born under the moonlight. She seemed otherworldly, untainted by the mortal world. She gave off an ethereal aura from her entire body. However, beneath Fairy Hauyue's picturesque appearance was cold and chilling, killing intent. The moon above her head suddenly shone brightly, and an extremely thick pillar of light shot out with lightning speed, enveloping all the overgods. The overgods who charged towards Fairy Hauyue did not take Fairy Hauyue's attack seriously at all. After all, Fairy Hauyue was a mere late god, so it was impossible for her to pose any threat to them. Even if she used powerful battle skills, she would only be able to make early overgods take her seriously at most. However, when the huge pillar of moonlight was about to envelop them, the overgods were no longer able to remain composed. Their faces all changed drastically at that moment. They were filled with shock. The energy contained in the light pillar formed by the light of the moon was indeed nothing to them, but it contained a very powerful power of law. At that moment, all the overgods were enveloped by the moonlight. They immediately felt their bodies freeze up. They were all frozen in the same posture as they were enveloped by the moonlight. It was as if they had been immobilized, unable to move at all. What is this ability? I'm actually unable to move. How is this possible? The overgods were shocked. They immediately circulated the origin energy within them as hard as they could to break free from the restraints of the moonlight. At the same time, strands of the power of laws condensed, turning into chains of laws that attacked the restraints of the moonlight. Fairy Hauyue paled after using the move. She became slightly feeble, but even so, she did not hesitate at all. She drifted down and arrived before a late overgod with lightning speed. She directly extended a finger towards his forehead. Even though the late overgod was trapped, he could still use the dense origin energy within him. Powerful origin energy erupted from his body, forming a barrier around him. At the same time, he used the power of laws to attack Fairy Hauyue. However, all his defenses were useless before Fairy Hauyue's finger. His power of laws dispersed, and the origin energy around him collapsed in a single moment. Fairy Hauyue's finger directly pierced his forehead with a strand of moonlight force, wiping out his soul on the spot. However, Fairy Hauyue's face became even paler after killing the late overgod. She seemed to have become even weaker. However, she did not stop. Her eyes were cold as she continued to extend her finger towards a second late overgod. Spurt. The second late overgod was easily slain by Fairy Hauyue under everyone's gazes. Even though Fairy Hauyue was only a late god right now, killing late overgods was as easy as crushing ants for her. The late overgod was unable to fight back at all. However, Fairy Hauyue had become very exhausted from the battle. She seemed even weaker after killing 2 late gods consecutively. She even seemed slightly haggard. At this moment, all the overgods paled. Their gazes towards Fairy Hauyue were filled with fear. Unfortunately, they were trapped there, unable to move at all. All they could do was watch as Fairy Hauyue killed her way over like the god of death. They were completely helpless. They had become living targets. Fairy Hauyue extended her finger a third time with a pale face. To no surprise, her target was Yonkai from the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Yonkai's eyes suddenly narrowed to the size of needles. He became extremely worried as he watched Fairy Haoyue's finger draw closer and closer. He was filled with unprecedented fear. His body was trapped, and he was unable to move at all. Let alone fight back, he could not even dodge. "If you kill me, Jianqin is dead for sure." In his desperation, Yang Kai mentioned Jianqin. Even Yang Kai knew that his words were completely baseless. As a matter of fact, they could be described as childish and laughable. This was because Jianqin had been saved long ago. He was not here at all. Moreover, Jianqin's 2 strands of profound sword qi were so powerful that even Yang Kai feared them very much. But now, he could not think of any other way apart from using Jianqin's name to make ends meet. As expected, Fairy Haoyue's finger suddenly paused when she heard Yang Kai's words. It was also at this moment that Yang Kai bellowed out. Origin energy surged out from him, and he finally broke through the restraints of moonlight force with the other overgods. He directly threw a punch at Fairy Haoyue. At the same time, the overgods behind him attacked Fairy Hoa with their full strength as well. They could already tell that Fairy Haoyue was currently weak from her appearance. They were certain that it was impossible for Fairy Haoyue to continue using such powerful abilities. "Sai, my soul is too weak. I can't unleash my full comprehension of the laws of the world. Even if I use the least energy-consuming moves, I won't be able to last for long." Fairy Haoyue sighed inside. She did not take on the overgods head-on. With a wave of her hand, she swept up the space rings of the 2 late overgods and directly flew towards the exit of the dwelling. Over half of the overgods pursued her relentlessly. They constantly fired strands of sword qi at Fairy Haoyue. The sword qi struck the rocks in the surroundings of the dwelling, producing endless booms. They could all tell that Fairy Haoyue was already on her last legs. She no longer possessed the might to kill the 2 late overgods so easily. As for the remaining overgods, they were all stunned by how Fairy Haoyue had killed the 2 late overgods. They did not dare to continue the chase. To no surprise, Yang Kai was one of them. He glanced past the 2 late overgods as his forehead became covered with cold sweat. So close. Just a little more and I would have died here, thought Yang Kai. He stared in the direction that Fairy Haoyue had left in with lingering fear. He seemed rather dejected. Clearly, he had given up on the Divine King's space ring. At this moment, Jianqin's face suddenly changed outside the Divine King's dwelling. He suddenly turned his head and looked into the Divine King's dwelling. The disturbance from the Divine King's dwelling was just too great. Let alone Jianqin, who was outside, even a few gods could sense the great booms in the dwelling. Chapter 1779. Fairy Haoyue has successfully condensed a body. Jianqin looked towards the entrance of the Divine King's dwelling, and he immediately beamed. However, he frowned in the next moment, and he became extremely stern. He could already see Fairy Haoyue fleeing up ahead with a pale face. Many overgods pursued her murderously. Jianqin's face sank. He looked at the huge teleportation formation that had silently been created outside the dwelling, and a cold light flashed through his eyes. They were filled with cold killing intent. The teleportation formation was formed by cultivators of varying strength in a special way. It seemed disorderly, but only those who had some understanding of formations or those who were familiar with teleportation formations would be able to see through it. As a result, basically no one apart from Jianqin discovered the teleportation formation outside the dwelling. However, as Fairy Haoyue fled from the Divine King's dwelling, the people who had cast down the teleportation formation began to become restless. Clearly, they wanted to activate the formation and send Fairy Haoyue away as soon as Fairy Haoyue appeared. "Don't panic. Follow my orders." An old voice entered the ears of the cultivators who had arranged the transmission array. This voice could only be heard by the cultivators who had arranged the transmission array. The person who spoke was an extremely ordinary-looking young man hidden in the crowd. The young man did not display much strength either. He was only an early deity. His strength was nothing special outside the divine king's dwelling that was filled with experts. Coupled with how ordinary the young man was, no one paid any attention to him. At this moment, the young man's eyes shone with extremely bright light. He stared at the divine king's dwelling eagerly and excitedly as he thought, fight, fight, fight even more intensely. It's best if both sides become heavily injured. That's what the old man wants. Humph! The remains of the divine king are fated to be the old man's. No one can steal it from the old man. The young man slowly extended his right hand. A yin-yang 8 trigrams disc quietly appeared in his right hand, which was covered by his wide sleeves. The rumbles from the divine king's dwelling became even more intense. Fairy Haya rapidly approached the entrance. Even the gods, deities, and origin realm cultivators outside the dwelling could see her clearly. Immediately, quite a few people began to retreat rapidly, distancing themselves from the entrance of the divine king's dwelling. They were afraid that they would be affected by the shock waves from the battle between over-gods and suffer an unexpected calamity. However, there were still quite a few people who did not choose to retreat. They remained where they were, and to no surprise, these people included the cultivators who had cast down the teleportation formation. Get ready. The young man in the crowd became nervous as well. He sent a message to all the people who had cast down the teleportation formation. They had reached a critical moment now. Success or failure would depend on this. Finally, under everyone's gazes, the white-robed fairy Hau flew out of God King Duanmu's dwelling as a layer of pure moonlight enveloped her. Activate the formation. It was also at this moment that the young man basically roared out to the people who had cast down the teleportation formation. At the same time, he tossed the 8 trigrams disc in his hand into the air. Immediately, a bright white light shot into the sky. The huge teleportation formation outside the dwelling had been activated. It shone brightly as terrifying energy swept through the surroundings, causing the expressions of everyone outside to change. It's a formation. It's a formation! Someone has actually cast down such a powerful formation outside the dwelling without anyone noticing. Heavens, I was standing in there earlier, and I didn't sense it at all. This colossal formation has actually been cast down by several tens of thousands of people. Heavens, what extravagance! The person who can cast down such a formation must have reached the pinnacle in formations. Outside the cave mansion, many cultivators looked at this grand array in shock, exclaiming one after another. At the same time, Fairy Hau frowned as she looked at the formation in the surroundings. Her face was filled with malice as she snorted coldly. It's actually a teleportation formation. Looks like they're trying to send me to a place that has already been set up. Ha ha ha! I never thought that I'd fall so low as to fall into the trap of a bunch of ants. Fairy Hau sneered. At this moment, she had already entered the teleportation formation. With a flash, she flew out of the formation as quickly as she could. Suddenly, 8 trigrams disc flew over from afar. It gave off a hazy glow as mysterious runes flickered and revolved around the 8 trigrams disc. The appearance of the disc immediately caused the surrounding space to become viscous. The space actually solidified at a visible rate, freezing the origin force and interfering with the surrounding space. Fairy Hau's figure was also affected. Her speed became extremely slow as a mysterious force confined her surroundings. Fairy Hau's eyes were cold. Even though she was in a predicament, she did not become flustered at all. She remained composed. At that moment, her eyes gradually turned white, becoming as white as the moon. It was as if a moon had been nurtured in her eyes. Fairy Hau's comprehension of laws had already reached an extremely profound level when she was alive. However, her soul was nowhere near recovered, so she was unable to unleash the power of laws from her peak state. However, now that she had been forced into a corner, she planned on burning her soul again to unleash the power of laws at the primordial realm. At this moment, an extremely powerful sword chi suddenly surged into the sky from outside the teleportation formation. Jianqin had struck out from within the crowd. A dense cluster of scattered sword chi had already gathered around him. They were the size of raindrops. Even though the sword chi was weak, unable to harm over gods or even gods, it was fatal to deities or origin realm cultivators. Several tens of thousands of people had cast down the colossal teleportation formation. Gods and deities only made up a tiny portion of them. Most of them were at the origin realm. Fairy Hoa sensed the sword chi that had suddenly appeared when she was about to burn her soul again. She could not help but become stunned. She suddenly looked in Jianqin's direction and immediately stopped burning her soul. She could not help but smile faintly. Jianqin was stern as cold killing intent shone from his eyes. As he extended a finger, the countless sword chi that revolved around him immediately shot towards the people in the teleportation formation as a huge silver-white streak. Chapter 1780. The young man who was hiding in the crowd and giving orders to the cultivators in the teleportation formation almost leapt up in fright when he saw what Jianqin had done. His face sank, and his gaze towards Jianqin was filled with extremely powerful killing intent and resentment. Jianqin, how dare you destroy the old man's arrangements? The old man will never forgive you from today onwards, the young man bellowed. The young man bellowed out as terrifying killing intent radiated from him. He immediately charged out as quickly as he could in an attempt to stop Jianqin's sword chi. As the young man charged towards the sword chi, his presence skyrocketed, reaching the peak in a single instance. He was no longer an early deity. He was clearly an overgod. Late overgod. Jianqin glanced at the young man and became stern. He shot his sword chi towards the people in charge of the teleportation formation, and he sped up slightly. The young man gave off a surging presence as he roared out furiously and charged over. He had already pushed his speed to the limit, turning into a streak of light. He wanted to use his body as a shield to block all the sword chi. However, even though he was a late overgod, he was still a little slower. When he arrived before the dense strands of sword chi, a small portion of them had already approached the huge teleportation formation, shooting towards the people in the formation mercilessly. Immediately, chilling cries rang out. In the blink of an eye, several hundred origin realm and deities in the teleportation formation were turned into beehives by the sword chi. Some of them even had their heads pierced by the sword chi, wiping out their souls. With just a single strike, several hundred or even 1,000 origin realm and deities died. Blood splattered through the air, falling down like a rain of blood. Large swathes of lifeless corpses fell from the sky. Even though the huge teleportation formation had been cast down by several tens of thousands of people, the teleportation formation was so intricate that even the slightest mistake would cause it to fail. However, the deaths of several hundred or even over 1,000 people directly caused extremely severe damage to the teleportation formation, preventing it from operating at all. The dazzling light from the teleportation formation gradually dimmed. The deaths of these people caused the energy in the teleportation formation to be unable to operate at full capacity. The several tens of thousands of people who set up the teleportation formation suffered a powerful impact, causing them to all vomit blood. All of them were heavily injured. Jianqin, you've ruined the old man's plans. The old man will not spare you, the late overgod roared. The young man who erupted with the might of a late overgod roared out furiously. He was utterly furious as terrifying killing intent radiated from him. It was chilling. Just a little more, just a little more. If I had a little more time, I would have been able to teleport her to the location I had set up beforehand. At that time, no matter what she obtained from the divine King Duanmu's dwelling, it would all be mine. I might even be able to obtain even more things from this soul that has just recovered her body. God damn it, I'm only one step away. The young man was furious. He had almost lost his mind due to the huge difference between the two of them. He had spent so much effort and paid such a great price. It could be said that he had gone through countless hardships to finally hide from everyone and cast down the teleportation formation without anyone noticing. Just when he was about to succeed, he had never thought that Jianqin would kill his way out at the final moment, ruining all his efforts. At the same time, the overgods who had hunted down Fairy Haiya all looked at the young man. Their faces all paled. "Master Chanlong, it's actually you! Master Chanlong, you said that you wouldn't take part in the fight for the divine King Duanmu's belongings and left the dwelling. I never thought you would be so crafty, secretly casting down such a huge teleportation formation outside the divine king's dwelling. Master Chanlong, what you're doing doesn't seem to fit your identity at all. The other side of the teleportation formation must be extremely dangerous. If we were teleported over, we would probably be dead for sure. Master Chanlong, I'll remember this. Just you wait." A few overgods bellowed out furiously. Many of their faces sank because Fairy Haoyue was not the only person who had fallen into the formation earlier. There were a few other overgods who had chased after her as well. Once the teleportation formation was activated, it would not just be Fairy Haoyue who would be teleported away. The young man completely ignored the mocking from the overgods. He charged towards Jianqin furiously. As he waved his hands, he immediately tossed out formation banners one after another, flying towards Jianqin's surroundings. His appearance changed drastically at that moment as well. He had become a white-haired old man. To no surprise, he was Master Chanlong. Jianqin drifted backwards, avoiding the formation banners that Master Chanlong had tossed out to prevent himself from falling into the formation. At the same time, he sent out strands of sword qi towards the formation banners. Master Chanlong formed seals with his hands. Every single formation banner he tossed out shone with dazzling light as powerful pulses of energy radiated out. The formation banners actually fused together, forming a huge python that was several hundred meters long. The python was completely composed from the inscriptions of the formation. Its presence was so powerful that it was no weaker than a late overgods. Afterwards, Master Chanlong extended a finger towards Jianqin from afar, and the huge python immediately charged towards Jianqin with its tail wagging. As for Master Chanlong himself, he charged towards Fairy Haoyue. "Don't fall into the hands of Master Chanlong, that scoundrel's hands." One of the overgods who pursued Fairy Haoyue immediately yelled out. Afterwards, all the overgods who were obsessed with Duanmu the Divine King's legacy charged towards Fairy Haoyue with Master Chanlong. However, the space there was disturbed by Master Chanlong's disc, causing it to freeze up. As soon as the overgods charged into the region enveloped by the disc, all of them slowed down drastically. Master Chanlong was the only person who was unaffected. On the other side, Jianqin had already begun fighting with the huge python condensed from the formation banners that Master Chanlong had condensed. Jianqin formed a seal with his hand, and immediately a strand of golden sword qi condensed, landing on the python's head as a golden streak of light. Boom! With a deafening sound, the huge python was completely unscathed after taking on Jianqin's Daluo sword. Jianqin's attack had only managed to slow down the python slightly. Chapter 1781. This python is very difficult to kill. Master Chanlong's mastery of formations has indeed reached an extremely profound level. His usage of formations has broadened my horizons as well. He can actually use formation banners to create such a powerful item, Jianqin thought. He ignored the python and flew towards Fairy Haoyue instead. However, this python would not let him go. Although it was only formed by the formation, it was very agile. It swept its tail, and one could only see an afterimage flash away. It had already lashed out with lightning speed. Slap! The python's tail struck Jianqin's back with unimaginable force. The great force directly reduced Jianqin's clothes to dust. Jianqin was blown away as his back was reduced to a bloody mess. Jianqin's eyes turned cold. He circulated his chaotic force. and the wounds on his back immediately healed at an unbelievable rate. The bloody wounds closed up in the blink of an eye. What a powerful body! This is the first time I've seen such a powerful body. At this moment, a mental pulse appeared from the python. It was filled with amazement. However, the mental pulse cried out again soon afterwards. What? How is this possible? You've actually recovered completely. My eyes must be playing tricks on me. Yes, my eyes must be playing tricks on me. How can someone recover at such a monstrous rate? I must be seeing things. My eyes must be playing tricks on me. I must be hallucinating. Sigh, I'm already so weak that I'm actually hallucinating. Moreover, the hallucination is so realistic. It's just like reality. Genshin's eyes suddenly narrowed. He stared at the python that flickered with inscriptions as a sliver of surprise gradually appeared in his eyes. He suddenly realized that the huge python in front of him was not only made up of runes, but there was also a powerful, primordial spirit hidden within the python. Genshin estimated the strength of the soul to be that of a late overgod. It's actually the soul of an overgod that's been trapped. Genshin said in surprise. He could already tell that the soul of a late overgod was trapped in the formation to increase its power. At the same time, it controlled the formation. It was equivalent to becoming the spirit of the formation. However, as soon as it heard Genshin's words, the trapped soul roared out as if someone had stepped on its tail. So what if I'm trapped? Kid, I'm warning you. Don't look down on trapped souls. Trapped souls have dignity. You're trapped in this formation. So all you can do is become Master Chanlong's puppet. I don't think you wanted to end up like this. Back off. I don't want to fight you, Genshin said coldly. What? You're just a brat who's still wet behind the ears. Yet you want me to back off? I won't back off. I'll stand in your way. I'd like to see what you can do to me. Come hit me if you have what it takes, the soul in the formation called out at Genshin. It was extremely arrogant. On the other side, Fairy Haoyue dodged Master Chanlong's attacks with great difficulty. She managed to avoid them by a hair's breadth each time. She was in an extremely dangerous situation. However, she was extremely composed. She did not become flustered at all. She was secretly prepared to burn her soul at any time. However, the price she had to pay for burning her soul was extremely heavy. She really did not want to use this move unless she was in a life-or-death situation. Genshin glanced at Fairy Haoyue, who was in a difficult situation. His face immediately turned cold, and with a thought, 2 strands of profound sword chi appeared. They hovered above his head and radiated with sword chi that even overgods would shiver in fear. Genshin's profound sword chi immediately attracted the attention of everyone present. At that moment, whether it was Master Chanlong who was dealing with Fairy Haoyue, or the overgods who pursued Fairy Haoyue, they all paid some attention to Genshin. A sliver of fear appeared in their eyes, and they became cautious. All of the overgods feared Genshin's profound sword chi, including late overgods. Although a single strand of profound sword chi was not enough to kill late overgods, it was enough to threaten their lives. Brat, what is this thing? What are you doing? If you don't want to die, hurry up and put this thing away. The Yuan spirit, trapped in the formation, began to stutter. Anyone could sense his fear at this moment. After all, he was only a weak soul right now. He could only use the strength of a late overgod with the help of the formation. Once he lost the formation, he would become extremely frail after losing his body. Cold killing intent flickered through Genshin's eyes. He stared at the huge python that blocked his way and was about to shoot out the first strand of profound sword chi. The huge python was controlled by the soul. If it wanted to keep Genshin busy, Genshin really would not be able to break free. As a result, he could only use the profound sword chi. Perhaps because he saw the coldness in Genshin's eyes, the trapped soul immediately began to panic. Don't look at me like that. What do you want to do? Don't shoot. Brother, please don't shoot at me. I'll move, I'll move, I'll move. Is that enough? If you have any grievances, go directly to that old bastard Chanlong. Just pretend you didn't see me and treat me like I'm invisible. The trapped soul finally became fearful when faced with the terrifying might of the profound sword chi. He directly retreated far away with his tail, no longer daring to stop Jianchen. At this moment, Fairy Haiyue was struck by Master Chanlong's palm strike in the distance. She vomited blood and was heavily injured. Jianchen ignored the huge python that had retreated far away. He glared at Master Chanlong in the distance. Without any hesitation, he immediately shot out the first strand of profound sword chi. Swish! The profound sword chi turned into a silver-white streak of light and shot out with unbelievable speed. Even late over-gods would not be able to catch it with their naked eyes. Only the senses of the soul would be able to see the trajectory of the profound sword chi. Even late over-gods were unable to dodge before such terrifying speed. They could only face it head-on. Master Chanlong had been prepared for Jianchen's profound sword chi long ago. The moment Jianchen shot out the profound sword chi, Master Chanlong recalled the 8 trigrams disc that had interfered with the surroundings. The disc flickered with profound inscriptions as it turned into a huge shield before Master Chanlong. Boom! The profound sword chi struck the disc and erupted with a great boom. Terrifying power surged out, causing the disc to collide with Master Chanlong. Spurt! Blood spurted from Master Chanlong's mouth as he was blown far away with the disc. Without the interference of the 8 trigrams disc, the space immediately returned to normal. Not only did Fairy Haiyue recover, but even the overgods who were trapped there recovered their original speed. At that moment, a terrifying pressure permeated the surroundings. The overgods all attacked Fairy Haiyue, sending streaks of energy towards Fairy Haiyue. At the same time, they gripped their treasures and secretly prepared for Jianchen's second strand of profound sword chi. Fairy Haiyue's body was not as tough as Jianchen's, so she was heavily injured from Master Chanlong's palm strike. She was unable to dodge the attacks of over a dozen overgods. After all, she was only a late god right now. Swish! With a flash of silver-white light, Jianchen's second strand of profound sword chi shot out as well. However, the second strand of profound sword chi did not target any of them. Instead, it shot towards the streaks of energy they had sent out. Boom! 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 With a string of booms, the profound sword chi directly dispersed the attacks of the 10 overgods. However, there were still 6 streams of energy from mid-overgods that shot over in an aggressive manner. Chapter 1782. The 2 strands of profound sword chi had drained away the power of Jianchen's soul. Intense dizziness swept over him, causing Jianchen to seem rather feeble. Jianchen suddenly bit the tip of his tongue. When he felt the heart-wrenching pain, Jianchen's head immediately quivered. His heavy head suddenly cleared up at that moment. Daluo sword technique! Tai sword technique! Jianchen's eyes shone with determination, as well as a hint of madness. He formed a seal with his hands as quickly as he could and sent out 2 strands of sword chi. Boom! Boom! With 2 booms, Jianchen's 2 strands of powerful sword chi collided with the 2 streams of energy. Even though his sword technique was quite powerful, he was already in a weakened state. The power of his soul had basically been drained away, so the power of the laws of the sword that he could use naturally could not be compared to when he was in peak condition. As a result, the 2 strands of sword chi were much weaker than usual. Jianchen's 2 strands of sword chi dispersed, but the 2 streams of energy did not slow down at all. They continued towards Jianchen like a hot knife through butter. However, they had become much weaker as well. Jianchen circulated chaotic force within him as he pushed the defenses of the chaotic body to the limits. He used his body to block the heavily injured Fairy Haiyue. With a furious bellow, he raised his fist and directly threw it at the 2 streams of energy. A layer of chaotic force coiled around his fist, giving off a violent presence of destruction. Jianqin was unable to unleash the power of the laws of the sword with his depleted power to fend off overgods. Moreover, he had blown up his flying snow sword as well, so the only weapon that Jianqin could use right now was his fist. As for the azulite swords, he was basically asking for death before so many overgods. Although none of the overgods recognized the azulite swords, and even many divine kings might not recognize them, they were afraid that the news would spread and the experts who knew about the swords would hear about it. With a boom, Jianqin's fist struck the two streams of energy with great force. His body trembled violently, and his fists were reduced to a bloody mess. His arms were covered in blood. The intense pain caused Jianqin to frown. At that moment, he felt like he was about to lose all feeling in his arms. The pain was accompanied by numbness, to the point where he could not even feel the existence of his arms. At the same time, the other four streams of energy struck Jianqin as well. Jianqin immediately vomited blood as he was blown away. Behind Jianqin was Fairy Haoyue, so Jianqin naturally collided with Fairy Haoyue. The two of them were basically stuck together as they were blown far away. The unique fragrance of a woman and something soft came from his back, but Jianqin was in no mood to care about anything else right now. His face was pale as he coughed up blood. He was heavily injured. Although his chaotic body was very powerful, his opponents were all mid-overgods, and there were over a dozen of them. Before mid-overgods, Jianqin's laws of the sword did not provide him with an advantage. His personal cultivation was much weaker, and he did not have a weapon. Apart from the supreme defense and recovery of his chaotic body, he basically had no advantage at all. Jianqin, you've clearly escaped, so why have you returned? At this moment, Fairy Haoyue's voice rang out in Jianqin's head. Even though Fairy Haoyue was heavily injured and had basically fallen into dire straits, she remained extremely composed. She did not panic at all, as if she had not realized the danger she faced at all. The reason why I've come back is to help you. Otherwise, you probably would have fallen for Master Qianlong's schemes already and been teleported to a place he has already set up. Let's not talk so much right now. Go first. There are just too many of them, so I can't last for too long, Lin Feng said sternly. Afterwards, he pushed out with his hand and pushed Fairy Haoyue far away. At the same time, he ingested a pill he had obtained from the divine King Duanmu's dwelling. His chaotic force circulated rapidly, healing his wounds as quickly as possible. Fairy Haoyue stared at Jianqin with mixed feelings as he pushed her far away, while he faced over a dozen overgods all by himself. She sighed gently inside, and she suddenly came to a halt. Instead of retreating, she charged towards Jianqin quickly. Why have you come back? The two of us aren't their opponent at all. Jianqin panicked when he saw Fairy Haoyue actually return. He called out in a rather exasperated manner. With the toughness of his chaotic body, he could barely keep the overgods busy for a while. Once Fairy Haoyue fled, he would use the linear lightning release to flee. However, now that Fairy Haoyue had actually returned, Jianqin's plan to escape had failed. He could not carry it out at all. He had no confidence in escaping from the mid-overgods with Fairy Haoyue at all. Didn't I come back to save you? Do you think you can still escape from the pursuit of over a dozen overgods? Moreover, there are late overgods among them, Fairy Haoyue said angrily. Fairy Haoyue said in annoyance. She arrived before Jianqin quickly, and before Jianqin could react, she extended her arm that was covered by her wide sleeves towards Jianqin's waist. At the same time, she burned her essence blood to use a secret technique. Immediately, a huge moon appeared, enveloping Jianqin and Fairy Haoyue. It shone with extremely dazzling light. The light was so bright that no one dared to look at it directly. Even the overgods could not help but close their eyes before the light. The light came and went quickly. When it vanished, the huge moon had vanished along with Jianqin and Fairy Haoyue. Not Good, they got away. The overgods stared the surroundings with sunken faces as they cursed resentfully. They expanded the senses of their souls in an attempt to find Jianqin and Fairy Haoyue, but they found nothing in the end. Let alone finding Fairy Haoyue and Jianqin, they could not even capture their presences within the range of the senses of their souls. Clearly, in that short moment, they had left the range of the senses of the overgods. Chapter 1783. Impressive, impressive. This brat is just too impressive. Even I can't help but look at him in a new light. He clearly hasn't cultivated for a long time, yet he possesses such great strength. A prodigy. A prodigy. This brat is definitely a prodigy, and a supreme prodigy at that. The trapped soul flew over from afar and jabbered on beside Master Chanlong. Old man Chanlong, I say, you're in trouble now. You've actually offended a supreme prodigy. The trapped soul put on an act of silence before saying seriously, with my eyes that can see through the mysteries of the world, the brat has cultivated for less than 1,000 years at most. No, 1,000 years is a little too long. It should only be a few hundred years, or even a few hundred years is a little too long. It should be even shorter. Don't tell me Jianqin has only cultivated for 100 years. Master Chanlong could not help but sneer when he heard the soul praise Jianqin in such an exaggerated manner. He snorted at the soul's words. Yeah, it should be 100 years or so. Even if there's a difference, it shouldn't be too far off. The trapped soul nodded seriously. But he soon became stunned. He said in surprise, Old man Chanlong, how do you know that kid has only cultivated for 100 years? Are you able to see through the mysteries of the world like me? Master Chanlong smiled disdainfully. He no longer wasted any more words with the trapped soul. He formed a seal with his hand, and the huge python immediately turned into a few formation banners that he held in his hand. Old man Chanlong, you still haven't told me how you know that brat has only cultivated for 100 years. The soul's mental pulse rang out from the formation banners. Becoming an over-god in 100 years? Do you really think old man is a 3-year-old? Master Chanlong mocked. He looked at the soul like he was looking at an idiot. Afterwards, he waved his hand and directly stowed the formation banners away in his space ring. Within a primitive mountain range that stretched for millions of miles, Jianqin and Fairy Haoyue sat cross-legged under a large tree. Both of them had consumed healing pills and were recovering from their injuries. Although Jianqin had withstood the attacks from several mid-overgods, he made a full recovery in just 2 hours due to his powerful chaotic force. After recovering from his wounds, Jianqin opened his eyes. He glanced at Fairy Haoyue, who was seated nearby, still recuperating. He knew that Fairy Haoyue's wounds would take a few days to recover, so he arrived nearby and took out the bright moon divine hall from his space ring. He placed it on the ground and entered the divine hall alone. Big brother, you've finally come to visit us. It's been so long since I've seen you. Xiao Ling misses you so much. As soon as Jianqin entered the bright moon divine hall, a familiar voice rang out. Xiao Ling's face was filled with excitement as she skipped over from afar. She clung to Jianqin's arm tightly, refusing to let go. Jianqin glanced around and discovered that no one was actually cultivating. They all sat in the hall as they conversed with the people from Emo clan and Ando clan. At this moment, all of their gazes gathered on Jianqin. You've already reached peak reciprocity. Jianqin immediately saw the beautiful Shangguan Mu, in her violet dress, and he immediately beamed. Shangguan Mu, could not help but smile when she saw Jianqin. She said, "Take a closer look. I'm not the only one who's reached peak reciprocity." Jianqin immediately studied the group carefully with that. He discovered that Shangguan Mu was indeed not the only one who had reached peak reciprocity. Aside from her, Houston, Xiao Jin, Xiao Ling, the white tiger, and the 7-colored heaven-devouring beast had all reached peak reciprocity. Ruijin, Heiyu, and Honglian had not reached peak reciprocity, but they were at early reciprocity. Even newbies who always wore golden robes had reached early reciprocity. Among the 5 people from the world of Forsaken Saints, Xiongzhong had also reached peak reciprocity. The 4 other receival protectors who had come with him had all become extremely powerful as well. They had all reached mid-reciprocity. Although they had not been in the Saints' world for very long, all of them had progressed extremely quickly. They had never dared to imagine this when they were in the lower world. Good, good, good. Looks like we'll be able to produce godhood experts very soon from the lower world. Genshin felt extremely delighted. He could not help but laugh aloud. Our cultivation speed is so fast all because of the divine crystals you gave us. If it weren't for them, our cultivation speed would be much slower, said Xiaojin. Xiaojin said. A few years had passed, and he had grown a little taller. Now he looked like he was 8 or 9 years old. Of course, his actual age definitely did not stop there. It was just that he was a metallic spirit, an innate spirit, so his growth was extremely slow. If it weren't for the fact that the Divine Hall is too weak and can't endure pulses of energy that are too powerful, I could break through to godhood at any time, said the White Tiger. He was filled with pride. The laws of the world were the key to godhood. He had already grasped them back on the Tianyuan continent. Houston also walked over. He looked at Jianqin kindly and said, Jianqin, what's the situation outside? You better find a time to let us out. Quite a few of us have reached the peak of cultivation, so there's no point in continuing to cultivate. At the same time, our comprehension of laws has reached the threshold of godhood. As long as we go out, we'll be able to break through to deity very quickly. At that time, I'll be able to help you deal with your problems. Although it'll be very difficult for me to help you as a deity, don't forget that I cultivate the Empyrean demon arts. Coupled with Amagami, we'll be able to share some of your burden. Jianqin chuckled aloud. Uncle Xiao, just focus on cultivating. Right now, my strength is nothing in the entire Saints' world, but I've still gained a foothold in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Before long, everyone will be able to go out and see the scenery of the Saints' world. Jianqin was filled with eagerness as he said that. With his current strength, he could indeed reign supreme in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. He planned on settling down in the Dong and province with these people once the disturbance in the divine king's dwelling was settled. He would make it their temporary foothold. After all, it was impossible for him to take them everywhere all the time. At the same time, even Jianqin had no idea how much longer he could keep his special identity a secret. Once it was exposed, he would probably become the public enemy of the Saints' world. Afterwards, Jianqin guided the cultivation of everyone in the Bright Moon Divine Hall. He shared his thoughts on cultivation and his comprehension of laws. Moreover, he found some cultivation methods, battle skills, and so on that would be helpful to cultivation from the space rings of the gods and overgods he had killed. He passed them all to them in hopes that they would be of help to them. He did not let them out immediately because he had just escaped from over a dozen overgods. No one knew whether the overgods would find him or not. Right now he was still in danger, so it would be extremely inappropriate for him to let them out. Chapter 1784. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Jianqin's face suddenly changed as he guided everyone in the Bright Moon Divine Hall. After bidding farewell to everyone, he directly left the Bright Moon Divine Hall and appeared in the outside world. Outside the Bright Moon Divine Hall, Fairy Haiyu's white clothes fluttered in the wind. Her black hair draped over her shoulders as she stood outside the Divine Hall with an indifferent expression on her flawless face. Unknowingly, she gave off a sacred presence. She looked like a celestial maiden who didn't stick to the mortal world. Her temperament was extraordinary. Have you recovered? Jianqin looked at Fairy Haiyue calmly and asked indifferently. Fairy Haiyue stared at Jianqin. She did not answer immediately. Instead, she remained silent for a while before replying with the same calmness. Yep. My injuries have recovered, but my strength hasn't fully recovered. I've used up everything in Duanmu's space ring that can help me recover my strength and condense my body, so the rest is yours. There's still some valuable items in there." With that, Fairy Haoyue tossed the Divine King's space ring to Jianqin. Jianqin did not try to be courteous. He directly extended his hand and caught the space ring. He fiddled with it, but he did not check the contents immediately. Fairy Haoyue continued, "There are no legacies from Duanmu in there. There's nothing that has to do with cultivation methods. Duanmu's true legacy must be that sword. Ling Hogong has obtained the golden flying sword. Ling Hogong's fortune is quite good, but he's offended the vice leader of the heavenly demon religion, Huayan, because of this." Jianqin sighed gently. He had no idea whether Ling Hogong's choice was worth it or not. "Jianqin, what do you plan to do next?" Fairy Haoyue asked. After a moment of thought, Jianqin said, "I plan on returning to the Dong'an province and establishing myself there for now. I want to provide a safe cultivation environment for the people who have come with me from the Tian-Yuan continent." Jianqin paused as if he had thought of something. He continued, "Oh, right, I've already investigated our location. This is the cloud plain of the 49 Great Plains of the Saint World. May I ask how far it is from your moon god hall?" "Cloud State," Fairy Haoyue said softly. She immediately frowned, and after a moment of silence she said, "The moon god hall is located on the ice pole plain where one of the 7 grand exalts, the ice goddess, resides. It's extremely far from the cloud plain. If you hurry over, you'll have to cross over a dozen plains. The only way to return is through teleportation formations between planes. The cost of teleportation formations between planes was nothing to me in the past, but now the cost of a single teleportation is an astronomical figure to me." Fairy Haoyue furrowed her brows tightly. With a wave of his hand, Jianqin took out the block of high-grade divine crystal he had on him without any hesitation at all. He said to Fairy Haoyue, "Take this block of high-grade divine crystal. I only have 1 block on me. The rest are just a few bits and pieces." Fairy Haoyue immediately became stunned when she saw Jianqin take out a block of high-grade divine crystal. She then burst out laughing and said to Jianqin, "If you take this block of divine crystal to a teleportation formation between planes, it won't even be enough to take you to the nearest plane. If you want to return to the cloud plane, it won't be enough even if you take out 100 times more." "What? It's so expensive to take a teleportation formation?" This time, it was Jianqin's turn to be shocked. In his opinion, a block of high-grade divine crystal was quite a fortune, yet it was not even enough to take a teleportation formation. To take a teleportation formation between planes, you need 5 colored divine crystals. Your block of divine crystal is equivalent to 1,000,000 standard high-grade divine crystals. If you convert them to supreme-grade divine crystals, it's only equivalent to 10,000 standard supreme-grade divine crystals. The exchange rate between supreme-grade divine crystals and 1-colored divine crystals is also 100 to 1. As a result, your block of divine crystal can only be exchanged for 100 standard 1-colored divine crystals. As for 1-colored divine crystals to 5-colored divine crystals, the price increases by 10 times with each additional color. Your block of divine crystal can only be exchanged for a standard 3-colored divine crystal at most. Jianqin frowned as well. Only now did he understand that taking a teleportation formation between planes was actually so expensive. Fairy Haoyue became worried as well. She said, "Only primordial realm experts possess colored divine crystals. It looks like I won't be able to return to the ice pole plane anytime soon. I just wonder how my father is doing right now." "There's no need for you to worry about that right now. I don't know what kind of problems your father is facing. But even if you hurry back immediately, you probably won't be of any help with your current strength," said Jianqin. Fairy Haoyue nodded. You're right. I am indeed too weak right now. I even face the danger of dying on the way back. The matter at hand is to recover my strength as quickly as possible. After making up her mind, Fairy Haoyue's gaze became determined. At that moment, her entire presence underwent a drastic change. Jianshin's eyes narrowed as he stared at Fairy Haoyue rather blankly. At that moment, he suddenly sensed a presence that made his heart palpitate from Fairy Haoyue. As a matter of fact, he even had the misconception that although Fairy Haoyue was only a lake god, he was as weak as an ant if she wanted to kill him. He could not put up any resistance at all. As expected of a primordial realm expert, Jianshin thought as his gaze towards Fairy Haoyue changed. I need to recover my strength. Jianshin, take this jade talisman. If you come across any danger in the future, crush it. I will return as quickly as possible. Of course, it's best if that happens in 5 years. Fairy Haoyue passed a pure white token to Jianshin before directly leaving. She wanted to find her own fortuitous encounters so that she could return to her peak condition as quickly as possible. Jianshin watched Fairy Haoyue leave. Only when Fairy Haoyue had completely vanished did he look at the token in his hand. The token was snow white. It was forged from a precious jade and had a tiny moon embroidered on it. However, Jianshin could sense a sliver of the imprint of Fairy Haoyue's soul in the tiny moon. Jianshin stowed the token away and left with the bright moon divine hall. After confirming the direction, he directly flew towards the Dong and province. With all the treasures in the Divine King's dwelling taken away, the disturbance caused by the Divine King's dwelling gradually settled down. The over-gods who had gathered in the Divine King's dwelling all left one by one. However, a large group of people remained in the Divine King's dwelling. They continued to search, unwilling to give up. Most of them were at the origin realm. There were a few deities and gods among them as well. They dug 3 feet into the ground of the cave, carefully searching every corner, hoping for a pleasant surprise. Aside from that, a few people who cultivated the laws of the sword gathered in the second stone hut. They studied the slashes left behind by the Divine King in the past. Chapter 1785. Not only were there locals gathered in the provincial city, but there were also many people from the other provincial cities of the 36 provinces of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. There are even merchants, adventurers, and so on from other divine kingdoms. With the influx of so many people, the provincial city naturally became extraordinarily prosperous. Today, a young man in luxurious clothes who seemed to be in his 20s mixed into the crowd. He followed the flow of people into the provincial city with an extremely low profile. The young man's appearance was nothing special, and his strength was average as well. He was only at the peak of reciprocity. He was the type that could be found anywhere in the provincial city. Stop! What's your name? Where do you come from? Why have you come to the provincial city? Just when the young man was about to enter the city, he was stopped by the guards just like everyone else. They asked him the same question. I am Yang Yutian, and I come from the sword-seeking province. I've come to the provincial city because I want to stay here permanently. The young man clasped his hands and smiled indifferently. The guard who stopped Yang Yutian glanced at Yang Yutian. Seeing how Yang Yutian was dressed in luxurious clothes, he definitely had some background, so he did not stop him. He smiled. Take this. This is your identification pendant. You can enter after paying 100 low-grade divine crystals. I hope you can stay in the provincial city forever. Remember, don't forget to charge up your identification pendant. Don't blame me for not warning you if you get caught by the guards. Yang Yutian paid 100 low-grade divine crystals and received his identification pendant. He discovered that there was 100 on it, and when he read the description on the back of the pendant, he could not help but smile. He said, "You have to pay a low-grade divine crystal for every day you stay in the provincial city, so you have to pay over 300 low-grade divine crystals a year. Once the number on the pendant reaches 0, you'll be caught by the guards of the provincial city. Looks like not just anyone can enter the provincial city. Just a single year will cost over 300 low-grade divine crystals, and that's not even including accommodation. You can't practice on the streets in the county city. Otherwise, you'll be arrested. However, there's a large-scale energy-gathering formation in the provincial city. The origin energy here is much denser than outside, so cultivating here is indeed much faster than cultivating outside. Yang Yutian walked aimlessly on the street, muttering to himself in a voice that only he could hear. This person called Yang Yutian was obviously Jianqin in disguise. Jianqin was in no hurry to expose himself after arriving in the provincial city. Instead, he entered the provincial city silently to observe the situation. He and Fairy Haiyue were the greatest winners from the opening of the Divine King's dwelling. At the same time, they had basically offended all the overgods. He really was worried that some of the overgods would guess that he would appear in the provincial city again and wait for him. Although he no longer feared most overgods with his current strength, he was still afraid of being surrounded. As a result, he needed to be cautious. Suddenly, Jianqin paused slightly. He raised his head to look at the sky, and his face gradually became stern. Afterwards, he carefully released the senses of his soul, carefully expanding it into the surroundings. Suddenly, Jianqin's face changed. Without any hesitation, he immediately flew out of the provincial city as quickly as he could. At the same time, the space there pulsed gently. A huge formation that had been hidden there appeared in a single moment, radiating with extremely terrifying pulses of energy that enveloped the entire provincial city. Linear lightning release. Jianqin formed a seal with his hand, and he turned into a bolt of lightning. Just when the formation was about to envelop the provincial city, he managed to escape by a hair's breadth. He did not fall into the formation. You really have come to the Dong province. Where do you think you're going? Stay here for old man. Master Chanlong suddenly appeared in the sky above the provincial city. His face was filled with a strange glow. He was filled with excitement as he pursued Jianqin as quickly as he could. At this moment, the provincial city had already been enveloped by the formation that Master Chanlong had cast down earlier. It was an extremely powerful trapping formation, such that no one in the provincial city could leave. When the formation enveloped the provincial city, several dozen presences that belonged to gods appeared from various parts of the provincial city at basically the same time. At this moment, whether it was the people from the powerful clans or the gods from other places, they all roared out furiously and charged into the sky. They directly attacked the huge formation that enveloped the entire provincial city. Who is it who is bold enough to trap the entire Dong province? The Dong province is one of the 36 provinces of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Sir, aren't you afraid of angering the divine king by casting down such a formation to trap us? The ancestors of the powerful clans all roared out furiously in the provincial city. Their faces were all sunken. However, Master Chanlong, who had cast down the formation silently to trap the Dong province, had already chased Jianqin into the distance. He had vanished without a trace. 1,000,000 kilometers away from the provincial city, Jianqin hovered in the sky coldly as he stared at Master Chanlong coldly. He had only used the linear lightning release earlier to escape from the formation. After all, this was a formation cast down by Master Chanlong. It was so powerful that even late overgods would struggle to break through it. Once he became trapped in the formation, he would be forced into an extremely passive situation. Jianqin, why aren't you running anymore? Keep running. Master Chanlong held the 8 trigrams disc in his hand as he stared at Jianqin with a smile. He seemed like he was done for Jianqin. At the same time, he was secretly surprised. He had never thought that the soul would guess so accurately, actually guessing that Jianqin would appear in the Dong province. Master Chanlong, do you want to obtain what you obtained from the divine kings dwelling for me? Jianqin stared at Master Qianlong emotionlessly. Master Qianlong immediately stopped smiling when he heard that. A sliver of cold killing intent appeared in his eyes, and he said, "That's only the first reason. The second reason is that you've ruined the plans of the old man, so how can the old man spare you? Are you confident that you can kill me by yourself? Even if you're a late over god," Jianqin said coldly. "Don't think that you can act recklessly before the old man just because you have those 2 strands of powerful sword qi." Master Qianlong growled. With a wave of his hand, he immediately scattered a few formation banners. As his hand seals changed, the formation banners immediately reassembled. In the blink of an eye, they turned back into a huge python that was several 100 meters long. Kid, you're actually here as well." Surprisingly, the trapped nascent divinity was inside the giant python formed by formation runes. He saw Jianqin as soon as he emerged, and he cried out in surprise. However, he turned his huge head towards Master Qianlong and said proudly, "Old man Qianlong, I told you before that this kid would appear in the Dong'an province. Do you believe me now? I was right." Master Qianlong snorted coldly. "You got it right this time. Listen up. This time, you have to stop him no matter what." However, when Jianqin heard what the trapped soul said, he was immediately filled with shock. Chapter 1786. Old man Qianlong, this kid might be young, but he's a supreme prodigy. You can't kill him. Are you sure you want to continue dealing with him? The soul, trapped in the formation, asked Qianlong. There was clearly some hesitation in his voice. Master Qianlong's face did not change at all. Not only did his heavy killing intent not weaken, but it even intensified. He said coldly, "Jianqin has ruined my plans, so how can I forgive him? So what if he's a supreme prodigy? Do it." With that, the 8 trigrams disc in Master Qianlong's hand shone brightly. Countless complicated and profound inscriptions flickered, forming a suit of armor completely composed of flickering inscriptions. At the same time, he formed seals with his hands and cast down formations in the air, enveloping Jianqin. "Madman! Old man Qianlong, you're a madman. You're even bold enough to offend a supreme prodigy. I can already see you dying to this kid's hands in a few decades before you reach 100. The soul trapped in the soul cursed furiously. The trapped soul cursed. Although that was what he said, he did not choose to just stand by and watch. Instead, he curled his tail and directly charged towards Jianqin. He called out, "Kid, you saw everything clearly from the side. I'm not the one who wants to deal with you. It's that old man Qianlong. If you have any grievances in the future, you can directly go find that old man Qianlong. Don't blame me." With that, the trapped soul controlled the huge python created from formations. With a slap, it swung its tail towards Jianqin mercilessly. Jianqin took action as well. His eyes were cold, and cold killing intent flickered through them as well. Chaotic force circulated, filling his entire body in a single instance. He did not dodge the huge python's attack at all. Instead, he directly charged towards Master Qianlong, who was casting down formations. Slap! The huge python's tail directly struck Jianqin's back, reducing Jianqin's back to a bloody mess. White bones could be seen. However, as soon as the wound appeared, it began to heal rapidly as Jianqin circulated his chaotic force. The wound healed so quickly that the soul hidden in the huge python was amazed. Jianqin used the force of the huge python's tail to charge towards Master Qianlong even faster. He was as fast as lightning. He brought his hands together and controlled the power of the laws of the sword. A strand of white sword qi extended from his palms, surging as a streak of light. It stabbed towards Master Qianlong's head with an unstoppable force. Master Qianlong was stern. Jianqin had moved just too quickly. Not only did the huge python fail to keep Jianqin busy, but it even allowed Jianqin to charge over even faster. In such a short amount of time, he did not manage to cast down the killing formation at all. The incomplete killing formation was completely useless against Jianqin. With no other choice, Master Qianlong could only form a seal with his hands and call out, "Explode!" With a boom, the incomplete killing formation exploded loudly, turning into a terrifying shockwave of energy that wreaked havoc in the surroundings. The shockwave was so powerful that even peak gods would be reduced to dust in a single moment if they entered. Jianqin bore the brunt of the shockwave. His chaotic force immediately circulated rapidly as chaotic light flowed on the surface of his body. He used his powerful chaotic body to endure the shockwave of energy. His clothes had already been reduced to dust. Bloody scars rapidly appeared on his body, which was not particularly burly. Chaotic blood flowed out from his wounds, but in the next moment, the wounds healed at a visible rate. Linear lightning release. Jianqin suddenly formed a seal in the violent shockwave of energy. He immediately turned into a bolt of lightning as he was pushed back by the shockwave. He seemed to have become a huge sword as he charged towards Master Qianlong with unbelievable speed. Bang! With a heavy sound, Jianqin used the linear lightning release to stab Master Qianlong as a sword. The armor condensed from the inscriptions on Master Qianlong's disc immediately dimmed as the terrifying force knocked him far away. Although Master Qianlong was a late overgod, he was skilled in formations. Open battles were his weakness. Now that he faced Jianqin, he struggled to use his way of formations, so he immediately lost the upper hand. Heavy killing intent flickered through Jianqin's eyes. Just when he was about to follow up with another attack, the huge python attacked from behind as well. It opened its huge mouth and bit towards Jianqin. With a single movement, Jianqin left behind a blur and appeared the python's weak point in a single instance. He formed a seal and used the Daluo sword. Immediately, a golden strand of sword qi hovered above his head. Jianqin extended his right hand and directly grabbed the hilt of the Daluo sword. He stabbed down viciously at the python's weak point. However, when the Daluo sword struck the python's weak point, the golden sword qi shattered inch by inch. It failed to harm the python at all. The toughness of the place was unimaginable. "Brat, why did you purposefully attack where my defenses are the strongest?" The soul's complacent voice rang out from within the huge python. On the other side, Master Qianlong was already several dozen kilometers away. He had become a tiny black speck. He hovered in the air as blood dripped from the corner of his lips. His hands had already turned into blurs as he formed seals as quickly as he could. He began to cast down formations. At the same time, he tossed out formation banners one by one. Jianqin knew that once Master Qianlong finished casting down the formations, he would be forced into an extremely passive situation. He glanced at the python coldly and stopped tangling with it. Instead, he charged towards Master Qianlong quickly. At the same time, strands of sword qi shot out with lightning speed, shooting towards Master Qianlong as streaks of light. "You're not allowed to run. That old man, Qianlong, wants me to keep you busy. Brat, if you want to blame someone, blame that old man Qianlong." The huge python swept its tail and stopped Jianqin. Jianqin's face sank. The huge python before him was extremely tough. With his current strength, it really would not be easy to injure it. Suddenly, 2 strands of profound sword qi appeared above Jianqin's head. Even though the profound sword qi was only the size of a finger, the sword qi it gave off was so powerful that even late overgods would fear it. "Why is it this move again? Brat, don't shoot, don't shoot. Don't shoot at me. If you want to shoot, shoot at that old man Qianlong." The trapped soul immediately shivered in fear when it saw the profound sword qi. It quickly retreated, clearly very afraid of the profound sword qi. Chapter 1787. With the toughness of this python's body, unless I shoot out both strands of profound sword qi at the same time, it'll be very difficult for me to deal any serious damage to it. This trapped soul seems to be very afraid of the profound sword qi. Jianshin's heart immediately jumped when he saw the reaction of the trapped soul. It was the same last time. It was indeed very difficult for him to injure his opponent in an open battle, but he became extremely afraid as soon as the profound sword chi appeared. Even though he knew that it would be very difficult for him to injure him with just a single strand of profound sword chi, he was still so afraid. "If you try to stop me again, I won't hold back at all," Jianshin said coldly. Jianshin said coldly. His 2 strands of profound sword chi were extremely precious. If he could scare off the python, he would obviously not waste a strand of profound sword chi. "I won't stop you, I won't stop you." The trapped soul controlled the huge python to retreat far away. It looked at Jianshin in fear. At a closer glance, it was quite obvious that the fear was not towards Jianshin. Instead, it was towards the 2 strands of profound sword chi above Jianshin's head. Jianshin ignored the soul and charged towards Master Chanlong, who was casting down the formation. His gaze was cold as his presence surged. His killing intent surged as the 2 strands of profound sword chi above his head shot out at the same time. Swish! Swish! The 2 strands of profound sword chi whistled through the air as they shot towards Master Chanlong with unbelievable speed. Master Chanlong had already known about the power of the profound sword chi, so he immediately used his 8 trigrams disc to block it. At the same time, he completed his final seal at that moment. He bellowed out, and the formation suddenly activated, enveloping a range of 100 kilometers. Boom! At the same time, the profound sword chi flew over with unbelievable speed as well, colliding with Master Chanlong's 8 trigrams disc. The flickering inscriptions on the 8 trigrams disc dimmed. The disc suffered a powerful impact and immediately struck Master Chanlong, shattering the armor condensed from the inscriptions on the disc. Master Chanlong paled, but before he could catch his breath, the 2nd strand of profound sword chi struck the 8 trigrams disc viciously. After being struck twice by the profound sword chi, the inscriptions around the 8 trigrams disc shattered. The entire disc dimmed, losing all its color. Under the powerful impact, it collided with Master Chanlong again. Spurt! Master Chanlong vomited blood as he was blown away like a broken kite. Although he was powerful, his body was nowhere near as tough as Jianshin's. After being struck twice by the 8 trigrams disc, especially after the 2nd strike, he was heavily injured like never before. Not only did the terrifying rebounding force shatter his internal organs, even the bones in his body were shattered. Blood seeped out from his pores, turning him into a bloody man. Master Chanlong directly fell from the sky and smashed into the ground heavily, creating a deep pit. He lay on the ground as he gasped for breath. He no longer had the strength to stand up. If it were not for the fact that his cultivation still existed and protected his body, he probably would have been reduced to a pool of blood by the 8 trigrams disc. This was because this was no ordinary attack. It was a god-tier sword technique, profound sword chi. Moreover, it was a peak god-tier sword technique. Even with Jianshin's current strength, he was still unable to unleash the true power of the profound sword chi. However, it was more than enough to deal with overgods. Moreover, he had shot out 2 strands of profound sword chi at the same time. At this moment, Jianshin had already arrived in the formation space. It was a fire-red world, and the air was terrifyingly hot. Even the air was burning there. Below his feet were endless volcanoes and pools of magma. The flames from the volcanoes were no ordinary flames either. Instead, they were flames condensed from the laws of fire. They had already reached the level of overgods. Even the pools of magma possessed extremely powerful laws of fire. Even if gods fell in, they would be reduced to ashes. Jianshin became extremely stern. Master Chanlong was not skilled in open battles, but he possessed extraordinary mastery over formations. He was also known as a formation master. As a result, he feared Master Chanlong's formations very much. He basically did not give Master Chanlong any time to cast them down. Unfortunately, he still failed to stop Master Chanlong in the end, allowing Master Chanlong to cast down the formation successfully. At this moment, the space there began to tremble gently. As a matter of fact, the space there even began to ripple. The terrifying heat in the surroundings began to rise at an unbelievable rate. The temperature was so great that even deities would be reduced to ashes in an environment like this. The endless volcanoes below Jianqin shot huge pillars of fire into the sky at the same time. From afar, it seemed like fire dragons had risen from the ground. It was a majestic sight, and it also seemed like pillars that supported the world. It was extremely shocking. With the appearance of the pillars of fire, Jianqin's face changed drastically. Without any hesitation, he ingested his last remaining soul recovery pill and charged toward the pillars of fire. At this moment, he felt a sense of danger. It was a sense of danger that he had never felt before ever since he came to the saint's world. It had even surpassed the desperate situation he had faced in the divine King Duanmu's dwelling. The appearance of the danger made Jianqin go crazy. He roared out furiously and unleashed all his potential, attacking the pillars of fire as hard as he could. He could already tell that the pillars of fire connected the world and were about to turn into a formation again. The formation was so powerful that he felt life-threatening danger. Master, destroy the pillars of fire. Once they turn into a formation again, it can even kill weaker divine kings. The sword spirits' voices rang out in Jianqin's head. They were filled with worry. Clearly, Jianqin was truly facing life-threatening danger this time. Ever since Jianqin had come to the saint's world, the sword spirits that rarely appeared had been roused. Outside the formation space, Master Chanlong stared at the formation he had cast down in the air with his eyes wide open. He wanted to move his arms, but as soon as he tried to move them, he felt heart-wrenching pain. His forehead became covered in sweat. I need to personally direct the formation to complete the second transformation. Once it's complete, Jianqin will be dead for sure. Master Chanlong gritted his teeth as a crazed light appeared in his eyes. He endured the pain as he tried to move his arms as hard as he could. This was because the second transformation of the formation still required the corresponding hand seals to activate, and if one wanted to form the hand seals, they couldn't leave their fingers. However, at this moment, not to mention his 2 arms, even all the bones in his body had been shattered. He could not move at all. "Old Chanlong, are you fine?" The trapped soul wagged its tail and arrived before Master Chanlong slowly. Looking at Master Chanlong's condition, it sighed gently before saying seriously, "Old Chanlong, I thought you would only die to that kid in 100 years, but it looks like you're going to die today. You won't be able to kill that kid until you complete the second transformation of your formation. Cut the crap. Why don't you give me some healing pills? I need to recover my arms immediately and complete the second transformation," Master Chanlong said weakly.